Hey, Spencer and Yani here. Before this episode of MeatEater, Yani and I have a big announcement about a big announcement. Yani?
That's right. MeatEater Live is coming to 8 cities this December.
Yeah, and we're going to tell you when and where to find us on Wednesday's episode of Trivia. So please tune in to Wednesday's episode at the very beginning. We're going to give you all the details you want to know about where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, and how you can get tickets.
Be there or be square.
This is the MeatEater podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater podcast.
You can't predict anything.
The MeatEater podcast is brought to you by First Light. Whether you're checking trail cams, hanging deer stands, or scouting for elk, First Light has performance apparel to support every hunter in every environment. Check it out at firstlight.com. FIRSTLITE.com. Trying to think of...
It's a great start.
How to start?
Well, I gotta do a better start. Here, right? Start over, Phil.
Here we go. Okay, beep.
Why? What's wrong with my glasses?
They're fine. They're fine.
just
We're
turn
getting
up.
a little too nitpicky around
No,
here,
let me
Corinne.
turn up. I'm turning up my magnification.
Is this one of those times where you're joking about cutting it out, or you actually want to like start over?
No, I want to start over.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, I was going to talk. I don't know. You decide later, Phil. I was going to. So we recently just to bring people up to speed. First off, this is the episode is called. Well, it's not. In the old days, it would have been called "Hmong Dudes or Trouble Part 2," and we're joined by Ya Yang and Yia Yang.
Vang.
Yia Vang.
Yep.
And Ya, you used to be Yia.
I used to be, yes.
That simplifies things.
How well do you guys know each other? You've met in the past.
Never met. I listened.
He's familiar with your food.
Well, I listened to the pod when him on with you guys, but other than that,
Got it. But
No.
he's you've eaten at his restaurant.
yeah. Actually, Yid probably doesn't know this, but I've been at like he caters fundraisers. I think you did the Hmong Museum fundraiser.
Oh,
you catered
sure, yeah.
that. You probably don't know this, but you did a house catering party. This was pre-pandemic, and it was in somebody's basement. You came to the house, and I was in that party.
Oh,
it was
cool.
for our 40th birthday party.
Oh, okay.
And they had your team come.
Oh,
and
shoot,
cook.
I think I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You were introducing us to like edible flowers and stuff like that. So I've had this
like Hmong dudes don't if they meet they don't necessarily like trade information.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, it's like white people. Like,
Well,
you know,
it's different than white people.
But you guys are related, right?
It's different than white
No,
people. And let me
we're
tell you
not.
let me tell you how it's different than white people in America. If I was in if we have how many people are in this country? 330
50 million.
330. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. For me to run into a white dude born in America, that doesn't catch my attention. If I had been born in Laos, okay, and was displaced by activities around the Vietnam War and wound up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I ran into another dude roughly my age who'd been through a similar set of circumstances, I don't know. I feel like you'd be like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I think like the thing that people have to realize is in Minneapolis, there's 75,000 Hmong people in the metro.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Holy
75,000
cow.
Hmong people in the metro.
So you can't keep track of everybody.
No, I mean,
as hard as you try.
Yeah, like we don't all subscribe to the same newsletter, but it's sometimes
the
things come up.
Minneapolis Hmong news.
Yeah,
75,000 is the Hmong
it's
population?
the largest, most concentrated Hmong people outside of China, the South China area, where there's about 2 million there. But yeah,
Gotta stay
See, you
corrected.
guys have the problem of having
stand
too
corrected.
many of your culture. Because if I meet a Latvian,
Oh,
and
dude,
if I don't
they
know
like pretty much,
know them, I know somebody that they know.
They make out. If he meets a Latvian, they make out.
well, even with like the Hmong, like so the thing with the Hmong people is we have 18 clans or 18 last names, So there's like our tribal names. Within that too, like there's a way of finding out like you're related to somebody
to, you know, some way. If you go back far enough, you know, you'll always be like, oh yeah, so like that uncle's, you know, aunt's cousin, da da da. And that's kind of what makes Hmong people such a really strong united front. So like in the Twin Cities areas, they have what's called the 18 clan, where each clan has a representative that, you know, and they're it's kind of like the Jedi Council. I mean, I'm serious, dude. Like they come in, they meet, and they have, you know, like they put out, you know, different, you know, ideas, and they're like, okay, let's, you know, go to your clan and then, you know, tell them that, you know, this is what the new rule for this is. And then, they do that. I mean,
so what rule for what is? Give me for instance.
Okay. For example, so in our culture, some cultures, I mean, you could, you know, you can help me on this. But, dowry. Dowry is still part of our culture.
Dowry.
Yep.
That's a good deal, dude.
If you
is that just symbolic now, or is there like some substance to it?
A little bit. I mean, there's some symbolic stuff to it. There's some, you know, there's like all these like inside. Both. Yeah. There's all these inside Hmong jokes. You know, like it's like one of those things where now, I mean, at points where it's like, for example, you can trace back to like, so for example, it's like the Yang clan wronged the Moa clan this way, and you can trace it back, and then the dowry, there'll be fines in the dowry.
You guys wronged his clan?
No, I'm just using for example, yeah. And you can trace it back.
I was going to spend a little time.
Steve's looking for the next big book, right? He's just like, wait a minute.
He's like, clan trouble in Hmong culture.
Let's trace it back. Let's see if we find something.
Definitely. And then there would be like, oh, well, we can find that group this much, and then, you know, and then it'd be like, oh, the dowry is like $25,000 or something, you know? And, you know, so I think one of the things that they kind of started talking about is just the ridiculousness of these fines that are huge, and these young couples that are like, I don't have the money for this, you know? And so there was kind of these rules that were put out, were saying, hey, let's kind of demolish all this kind of tribal conflict from generations and generations ago. And so, you know, they put out a big statement about that, you know.
Oh, really? And then they also capped the dowry at a set amount, so that everybody should just follow that. Versus otherwise, it is it goes all-night negotiation.
Yeah.
You know how I just got caught being racist, like thinking you guys knew each other? Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Normally, when a white guy gets caught being racist, he'll do stuff like he'll be like, "Well, I'm going to do more listening than talking." Right? I'm not. Well, I'm going to do more talking than listening, because let me tell you something. Ya has been pitching you to us. Ya was like, you should have this guy on. So eventually, when we got you to come on, we said to Ya, you should come out and hang out.
Yeah.
Is that bad? I feel like that's great.
No, it's awesome. You know, it's funny. My buddy Jordan, he like wrote in a little something.
So on his episode, I was like, this guy's awesome. My best friend.
So you did it too.
In June of 2021, I pulled it up today. It took me some doing, but in Gmail, I was like, I totally sent an email. I don't know if I, you know, wrote it well or not.
Yeah.
And I know you get a lot.
You did the same thing.
Did the same thing.
Yeah, he wrote it. He wrote
You're
it
like, these Hmong guys would like to know each other.
And it was more so, this is another great.
Like, hey, I know a white guy.
It's not exactly what I said.
I'm going to intro him to you.
I feel like that's not what I'm saying.
But yeah, I mean, Jordan said the same thing, you know, and he's like, hey, you know. And then I kind of, it was really funny, Steve, like, and especially with the whole crew here, he told me, he goes, I'm sending this email to MeatEater. Maybe they'll have you out sometime. And I'm like,
I prophesied this.
Yeah. And then I'm like, cool, bro. If you do and I get to go, I'll bring you. And we like both laughed and we're like, ha, 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 ha. And then that was 2021.
Here he is.
Yeah.
Can you introduce yourself? We've done a horrible job introducing everybody. And we haven't even gotten to Yani's mountain lion story yet.
Sorry, Yani.
Just do it quick. Plug yourself, plug your restaurant, plug your show.
Yeah, so Vang, we from Minneapolis area, we have a restaurant called Union Hmong Kitchen, and then we're building out a second one that's in the works, and hopefully it will all be finalized by this week, called Yani, which is the refugee camp that my parents met in, I was born in. Over 90,000 Hmong people went through there from 75 to 92. And so we wanted to name this restaurant Yani. It's our first big brick and mortar project. I tell people it's a love letter to my mom and dad. So that's what that restaurant will be when we get done, hopefully 2024 springtime.
Great.
But yeah, we have other restaurants and, you know, all these other little things we do.
Okay. We're gonna dive into your food and your past and all that kind of stuff.
Based off of just that little pitch, though, like, I want one on the list. Love letter to mom and dad. I'm sold.
Yeah. It's been really fun, man. It's been really fun.
So Ryan Callaghan.
Still me.
And then go ahead and introduce.
My name's Jordan Vold, college buddy of you. We went to school, UW lacrosse years ago.
And you're the guy that he said if he comes on the show, you're coming too.
100%.
That's great.
Yeah,
He's got
100%.
a bluegill tattooed on his
Let me
forehead.
see it.
Yeah,
Really?
right there, Woody.
That's great, man.
Oh, I gotta get one of them.
You know, my kid has a.
You should, I mean, there's nothing like a bluegill.
No.
My kid has one now in a tank.
A tattoo?
I thought you were gonna say
No,
tattoo.
no,
I was like,
no.
dude.
He's got a bluegill in a tank. I love that thing so much, man. We feed it like worms and stuff, but that bluegill is trained now. He used to be kind of spooky. That when you come in the room now, that bluegill is lined up. That bluegill's like worm time.
I don't want to get way into it, but 2 summers ago, I never met my dad's dad, my paternal grandfather. He loved, he loved to fish bluegill like any good Wisconsinite.
Sure.
Never met him. Was fishing with my dad and his brother, my uncle Ron, and he had a pitcher counter. I don't know if people do that to like count how many fish are in the boat to make sure we limit.
I count them later.
Yeah.
When I'm emptying my bucket.
You hit the clicker, and my dad and my uncle Ron were just saying, "Grandpa, our dad, my grandpa, who I never met, would have loved this." And I was just, that moment, I was like, "That'd be cool. It'd be cool to do."
I was telling my kids about the other day because I was saying to them, I can't wait till that bluegill turns into a keeper. And they're like, you're not going to eat that. No, I don't mean like that. I just want it to be that. I look in the aquarium and it's like a keeper bluegill in there. And I was telling them, when I was a little kid, I remember my dad made us sticks that were 6 inches long with your name written on it. And if you were fishing bluegills, you had to have that stick. And if it wasn't as long as that stick, you didn't bring it home.
Huh.
That is
Because
awesome.
he got so sick of cleaning those 4-inch bluegills.
Yep.
Yani's here.
I told you my little story about the neighbor that I fished with in North Carolina. He's a neighbor of my in-laws, and he used to be like head of sales for some, I think Henry's Fishing Tackle maybe. Anyway, so he went and saw a lot of tackle dealers, tackle makers, etc. And he said he had been in the place where there's a bunch of aquariums with largemouth bass in them.
Yep.
And he walked in there once with other dudes with white coats on. And as you walked down these aquariums, the fish would all just turn and watch these. And the guys would be like, oh yeah, it's time for a new batch. Because like you can't test a lure on a fish that is just like waiting for you to drop something into the water.
Association.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna come right back. Yanni's got a story. I don't even know the story. I don't even know what it is. Chester's here.
Yep. Well, my mom was in labor with me on Mullet Lake while my dad and her were fishing bluegills. Yep.
Hold on, keep back. I just got so distracted by Mullet Lake.
She was in the boat as well.
She went into labor and they were fishing bluegills on Mullet Lake. So
it was like a race to get your limit.
That's my connection to bluegills.
That's great.
Hold on.
Did you know I was fishing walleyes the day your kid was born?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ya Yang's here.
It's a sign.
Thanks for coming, Ya.
Of course.
You gonna hit youth turkeys with us again?
Of course.
Yeah. They're gonna. Things are moving along to get youth season to 4 days.
Yeah, it's great.
And your daughter got a turkey after we hunted together.
Yes, correct.
That's good news. And you got a buck last year.
You got a buck last year. I got a turkey this year.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You said, yeah. That's great. All right, Yanni, you ready to tell this? Oh, can I tell one thing before you tell your thing?
You bet.
Yanni's got a mountain lion story. You're not in it though, are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Secondhand.
I'm just trying to think of a way to plug my buddy's business again. And I just thought of it. Chester, explain the text exchange we just had.
Steve introduced me to his buddy Matt.
Matt Drost.
Matt Drost. He's got a little bar that he opened up, mobile bar.
Mm-hmm.
And
is there a direct sale of alcohol with this mobile bar?
Well,
no.
No, you have to supply you have to buy the booze.
I'll explain it for you, Chester.
Okay, well,
let's say you live in northern Michigan and you're having an event.
Yes.
50th wedding anniversary, a regular wedding.
Yeah, but we didn't just have that in the text exchange.
No, I'm just helping.
Okay.
Like I said, I was using this as a jump off point.
Okay, yeah. And
you want to have a great experience for your guests.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you go to roaming, N-O-M-I, roaming northern Michigan, but it's not. It's roaming, N-O-M-I.com. My buddy's a school teacher. This is his summertime business. He has a camper trailer rigged up like a bar when you're doing your event and you get married, you're like serving booze anyways. He helps you figure out what your booze order needs to be. You call in and pay for your booze at the booze store. He picks the booze up, brings his mobile camper bar to your event. Him and his wife work at it. They then open the window and your guests at your wedding go up to the bar. Mm-hmm. They do signature drinks, custom cocktails. They take care of everything.
Yep. And
I have nothing to gain from this.
Pretty soon.
They have tequila?
If you want it. And Chester has, just out of the kindness of his little heart.
My parents own a cocktail garnish company out of Wisconsin. So if you go to any grocery store, liquor store, and you look for garnishes, it's probably Forest Floor Foods. But now you're going to be able to go to Matt Drozer's mobile bar. Drost. And order a Bloody Mary.
Matt Drozer's makes Western Big Game apparel over at First Light.
Mm-hmm. But you're going to be able to order a Bloody Mary, and he's going to have all the fixings for it. Or you're going to be able to order an old fashioned. You get a sweet pickled mushroom as a garnish, or really whatever you want. Nice cherries for a kitty cocktail for your kids, maybe even. We throw those in there too. But
I got more Matt Droll stories than you'd be able to stomach. We used to drink. Remember Mad Dog 2020?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't really remember it, but I've heard of
it. I feel like he had a 30-30 rifle. We used to call him MD 30-30 because like Mad Dog,
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good one. I got some good ones, but I do have some good ones.
Yeah, let's not get into Mad Dog 2020 stories.
All right, the mountain lion story.
Okay. So this story comes from my buddy Jeff Flood, who I met through Bart George, who's our big game biologist friend that works over for the Kootenai tribe in Washington. Jeff and our buddy Bruce help Bart with a mountain lion collaring project that you can, I forget which episode it is, maybe Corinne will plug it in, but you can hear all about it when we had Bart on telling us about this collaring study.
What episode is that, Corinne?
It was. I remember it was one of the
300.
It was early COVID. It was early COVID because I remember we came into the office and it was like mid 2020.
Oh yeah, it was. It was remote because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're researching like how much if they can deter lions from being around humans by playing loud human voices to them repeatedly. That's not what they're doing?
Yeah, it's a little more complicated, but go ahead.
Well, I know. I'm trying to simplify it so I can get to the main part of the story. Okay. So to do this, they catch cats and they collar them. They catch them the first time using hounds and they collar them. And then when they come back, they know the location of the cat because it's been collared. And they can walk up to it playing usually the MeatEater podcast at a loud volume. And then they measure at what point the cat runs, how far it runs.
Because they're creating an association.
Yes.
In this cat's mind. They're creating association between trouble and human voices.
That's right. Because after they hear the human voices, the hounds are released and then they're sort of, run agitated by hounds up into a tree.
And they make that association.
Yeah. They do that repeatedly and then they, take the data. So it's ongoing study.
This being because in the old days, if a lion so much as looked at a person, it was dead. And nowadays, there's a little less social tolerance for that, for lethal control of predators in your yard.
That's right. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on over there in East Washington. We won't get into it with just the controversies around mountain lions and people.
And just the state and the governor and the game commission. Holy smokes. We need to do a dedicated episode on that.
Oh man, we're hustling hard on getting actual current commissioners signed off on interviews and stuff like that. And I think everybody over there knows that they're not really well received right now, so we're not making a lot of headway.
Got it.
Yeah.
My least favorite governor in America used to be Murphy over New Jersey because he campaigned against bear hunts. And my new least favorite governor is Inslee in Washington. Go on.
So they collared a female off of a deer kill in late March. And a lot of times, this is Jeff doing this work. A lot of times what Jeff does is if he sees a deer kill and there's enough carcass left, he'll throw up a camera just to see what happens, right? So he threw up a camera, and in the first night, 4 adult lions and 2 kittens show up that night. So he just said, needless to say, it didn't last long. That's kind of a little side story to the main story. He figures with that pressure, this mountain lion moved a couple miles away.
Okay.
The next time they went to catch her, when you
say
her,
the pressure, you mean from the other lions?
Yeah, from the other lions.
Got it.
And he figures now that he knows what he knows now that it was because she was about to give birth. So she moved a ways away, didn't want to be by the other lions. So the next time they catch her, he can tell that she has kittens because she's lactating. So they follow the back trail on the GPS of where they had first bumped her. And sure enough, there is 3 kittens there in a pile. I had a picture of it on my Instagram. They were holding the kittens. So he puts a camera on the kittens. What was interesting, sorry, I'm trying to read an email while I relay the story so I get the numbers right. He figures they were about 10 days old, and he said he thought it was interesting that how long sometimes she would leave all of them. Sometimes, and again, this is just through watching pictures on a trail cam, so you never know if mom's just behind the camera or next to it, not getting picked up. But at some point, 7 hours, she would leave them.
I'll buy that.
And not be there. On May 4th at 11 a.m.
Can this be this be commented on as you go?
Yeah, it doesn't.
The reason
that
doesn't surprise me is it would be that feeding itself is just more involved, right?
Exactly.
Like a deer could just go graze, whatever, 20 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come back, graze, come back. But for that thing, I mean, it's headed out, right?
Hunting.
It's on like a mission.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems like they would need to be able to do like some kind of lengthy stash because it's not like, hey, I'll be back in an hour.
Sure.
You know?
And I guess that the reason you would think that it is a long time is because you would think that, oh, how are those kittens going to survive that long without being able to get a little milk in that 7-hour period, right?
Yeah.
So May 4th, first thing in the morning, she moves her first kitten, grabs it by the back of the neck, walks off with it. Doesn't come back until 6 p.m. to grab this.
What time did it grab the first one?
8 a.m. So who knows how far it moves it, but comes back at 6 p.m. to grab the second one and moves it. Same day. 1 kitten left, right?
It's like a bad children's book.
But
it's like a bad parenting book.
At midnight that next morning.
Oh, I want to make sure I'm getting this. So it gets the first one at what time?
6 a.m.
Okay, then comes back in the afternoon.
8, well, what did I say? No, 8 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Okay, so it gets 1 to 8 a.m., brings it wherever.
Yeah.
Comes back that evening, 6 p.m. Now there's one sitting there into the darkness.
And at midnight, a skunk shows up.
Oh.
Yeah. And again, it's not like documented by pictures, but the skunk was there for quite some time. There was blood on the skunk. Mom showed up the next day and spent 5 hours there, just like looking around, doing circles before she left, and then he never saw it again.
The skunk ate the kitten.
Whether it ate it or it just killed it, you know? But I mean, think about it from this skunk's perspective.
That's a big win.
Yeah. Take it out now. That's one less dude later taking me out or my, kin.
Do you know how big these kittens are at what?
Tiny.
At this stage?
I mean, little fur balls. I mean, not even the size of a house cat.
Gotcha.
That's a cold-blooded skunk.
Right?
I want to understand mom's decision making too. Like, how does she select a kitten? Is it totally random?
Oh yeah.
Or is she like, yeah, oh yeah,
like my big favorite one?
Right.
My
or
guess
the one
is
in
that
the
the
middle
two
is the best
healthiest.
kitten, right? The one in the middle is the best kitten. The first one to leave is super exposed, or is the less scent if you're the first one. It's fascinating.
The middle is the favorite.
I would think the middle.
She's like, I'm going to bring the one I like. The one I really don't like, I'll figure it out later. The one I sort of like, I'm going to bring it now to pioneer this new spot. If it looks good, I'll go get my favorite one And then if I got time later, I'll get my least favorite one. We should maybe we could publish an academic article about this called Favoritism Presums and Feline Concolorists.
Or just write a children's book. Yeah, write a children's book.
Children's book called Tough Luck.
Yeah.
You can do little backstories on each of the kittens and be like, this is why mom picked you as the middle one.
I have a picture of my daughter on my phone, and the other day she was saying the reason I have her on my phone is otherwise I'd forget about her.
Oh my God.
Because she's the middle.
Where you're like, honey, you're not wrong.
Because she's the middle.
I keep a lot of things on my phone that I don't want to forget about.
Also, that's episode 220. It's called An Elk Hunting Nudist Checks the Breeze.
God, it's a good title, dude.
It's called An Elk Hunting Nudist Checks the Breeze if you want to learn all about Bart George's mountain lion collaring study in Northeast Washington.
It was a good title. We had a good run at just having titles that didn't mean anything.
What happened?
We started naming them stuff that means something.
We're bowing to the
For
algorithm.
search engine optimization?
Well, because now with the shows on YouTube, it doesn't work to have, you can't have a name that has nothing to do with anything. Meaning, if you name something a nudist...
or a puss in the pot.
A puss in the pot, or a nudist checks the breeze, you'll wind up in like a different land.
So there's people that would tell you that would have been the same case on other platforms prior to YouTube?
No, because I resisted the idea. Here's the thing. I resisted and still resist the idea
I know
that
this.
people search podcasts. You'll hear people, some people do. I don't believe that people regularly do content searches for podcasts. Meaning, I don't think people go in and do keyword searches around podcasts. Some do, but I don't think that's how people discover podcasts.
I think searching for people, maybe like certain folks. But,
sure, and
yeah.
when we would bow to that in some respects with our old naming convention, but now here's another thing I'll tell you that surprised me. The words that we're actually saying right now actually matters for how YouTube serves. You could name it like a nudist checks the breeze, but then never talk about nudists and all that. And it'll be served based on content. But the thumbnail people see is based on, it'll be served based on what's actually done within the show. The thumbnail people see will be what you present to them. So if you have, like if you're talking about mountain lions, it might go to a person that loves mountain lions. What that person's going to see is a nudist checks the breeze. And he'll think, why is this here? So for this reason, am I doing a good job of explaining this, Corinne? Is this
Sure. So like our guests today, Donald Trump and Joe Rogan, are talking about transgender rights in bathrooms. And that could possibly help this episode pop up in people's searches.
Good job, Cal.
Nailed it.
That's next level right there, man. You satisfied with that, Corinne?
Yep.
Corinne's satisfied with that. Couple of quick things we got to touch on.
The road to 2024. Go ahead, Steve.
We covered roamingnomai.com. Again, probably hit that a couple more times in the future. Vegan landlords. This is a Chatticut question, Chester. Did you know about this?
Well, I just read it. So yes.
I know, whatever. We'll cover it. He was listening to the Puss in the Pot episode. So the Puss in the Pot t-shirts came out, but they're gone already. But we didn't order that many.
Are we going to order more?
I don't know. They were gone in less than a day. I sunk a gaff into an octopus's arm, and he got the gaff away from me and snuck off with it. And I'll point out, they can lose their arm. It doesn't bother them. They just grow a new one. So then we started laughing about how that octopus probably doesn't go anywhere without that gaff.
Snuck off with it is an interesting way to put it.
Pulled it out of my hands. We had gotten a wrestling match, and he got away with the gaff.
It was a big one.
But the gaff isn't barbed, so the gaff would have just fallen out. Either way, it's funny to think of an octopus now, because he uses the gaff for everything.
He's going to come back and get you.
Yeah,
with
like
that
if
gaff.
he wants to get something out of a hole, he's like, stand back, boys. And he just gets that gaff out and does what he needs to do with it.
You're going to hear a little subtle tapping on the bottom of your boat.
That's what we're waiting for. Someday that gaff hook up through the bottom of my boat. And I'll be like, he's back. We made a shirt of an octopus with a gaff, but it's gone. But anyways, on that episode, we were talking about, I can't remember. Oh, we were talking about vegan landlords that were in the news for people, which I supported the right to do this. A landlord saying, I'll rent to you, but if I rent to you, you are not allowed to cook meat. I don't like it, but I support that right. Because I generally am like, I'm generally supportive of that sort of stuff. So, and the thing, to maintain consistency in this world, it'd be like people that get really worked up about First Amendment rights only when their First Amendment rights are imperiled. But they're very slow to defend First Amendment rights of their adversaries. So the NCAA, no, not the NCAA, that's the basketball people.
NAACP.
The NAACP will often defend the First Amendment rights of white supremacists because they're so staunchly First Amendment that they'll defend the First Amendment rights of people who'd probably like to kill them. So, because I think that people should have more latitude to make, just more latitude to make these sorts of decisions around their own home and how you rent your home, I was like, yeah, okay. I don't like it, but I would never tell someone that they should have to rent a house to someone doing something like that. I don't know. I was just trying it on.
So
I'm not sure I'm committed. Phil, go ahead.
I wasn't there because this was recorded in Alaska, but if I were there, I would have reminded you that in the Chetiquette episode with Luke Combs, we got a question about a landlord who would not rent a home to gun owners.
And I told them to lie.
And you said lie and do it anyway.
Well, if I heard from someone who said, my landlord rented me a house and said I can't cook meat, but I'm thinking about cooking some, I would say, I think that you should. Right?
Sure.
So I am. It is consistent.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not like a judge. I'm not like Judge Judy.
I'm very aware, yeah.
It's just, but that's what I'm saying. But this guy here has got a different situation, but it made him think of it, where he's part of the story I don't understand. He used to live in a rural area, but due to residency rules, had to move into the city. What would that mean? Oh, this is exactly what you're talking about.
No English? What?
You live by the Hormel factory.
Well, I go down there. It's like 2-hour drive south. Yeah.
Okay.
When you drive
2
down
hours from your home is the place where they make Spam.
Yep.
And you're saying the executive leadership team at Spam.
Yeah. In their bylaws, they have to live down in Austin, Minnesota. Yep.
Okay. So this feller might have run into a similar thing because he's saying, I used to live out in the sticks, but because of residency rules, he had to move into the city.
Yeah.
He's in Buffalo, New York, so he's not working down there at Spam.
Yeah, but while you were talking about that, if you talk to the landlord and the landlord says, hey, no cooking meat here, is it okay just to move on to another apartment or another house? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Because that's what the landlord. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah,
I would be in that situation where they're like, you can't cook meat here. I'm like, okay, cool.
Like, I'm gonna move.
Yeah, I'll go find some other place.
Yeah, or I'm gonna cook it anyway. Call the cops.
Can I
don't know.
I got to throw this out there. This is like the best article I've seen in a long time, and it really strikes me because I used to have to travel around the country with a practicing vegan, and that person was obnoxious and was adamant that I go to these vegan restaurants in different places. And I always was just like, it is not worth my money. But my assumption was that the experience would be a lot different than what it was. And I was actually like appalled when I finally did sit down at a vegan restaurant to see all of my food terms on the menu.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they steal shit from
I was like, well, what? Like, I'm down for a salad, but you have...
Why do you gotta act like it's bacon?
Yeah, Reuben and fries and
hot dogs,
chicken fried steak. So I got to hand it to whoever wrote this article, but it's called No More Cordon Bleu. France's long-running battle over vegan food names has escalated as the government published a decree banning meaty terms such as steak, grill, or spare ribs being used to describe plant-based products.
I think that's a little bit of government overreach.
I love it. If that's what government overreach is, I fully embrace it.
I like it, yeah. You know that we covered that little dust up. I'm going to come back to the story about this guy, but we covered that little dust up where that dude, this is the weirdest thing because, oh my God, it's one story turned into another here. So we got 3 stories up in the air. Story 1 is this. Well, story 1 is this fella here that we're talking about who had to move to town because of the rules. Okay, so hold that in your head. Story 2 is how these French people in your situation. There's 4 stories. Story 3 is that we covered how a guy was suing Buffalo Wild Wings because their boneless wings aren't wings.
Yeah, they're technically not wings, but whatever.
Buffalo Wild Wings retort was, am I using retort in the right way? Allow me to retort.
Yeah.
Buffalo Wild Wings retort was, we don't sell any buffalo. Our hamburgers are not ham. Our chicken fingers are not chicken's fingers. So it should not come to you as a great surprise that our boneless wings are not wings. In this article,
they're not buffalo's wings either.
No. Now I'm into story 4. In this article, they interview some dude who is like who's made this whole issue like his axe to grind, but he's not the litigant. He's not the person suing Buffalo Wild Wings, but he's a person who believes, and they talk about him in the article, that he believes they should be called saucy nugs. And somehow he weasels his way into the article. I'm standing at a book event. I'm doing a book signing event, and there's some guy in line that looks like not like everybody else that would come to one of my book signing events. Meaning most of my stuff is like some dude in square toe cowboy boots with like 3 kids because it's a children's book.
Recognizable demographic.
But then here's this guy that I know I've been using a lot of people looking like Weird Al because I was talking about Gallagher, the comedian. Here's a guy that looks like a young Weird Al. Comes up to me. And basically he's there to tell me that they should call him Saucy Nugs. But does not know that we discussed this on the podcast. Like this guy
independently
just goes to anywhere he can get an audience.
Wait, he was the guy that was in the article?
Yes.
Oh,
and I was like, we talked about this in the podcast. He had no idea. He's just,
He's just
guerrilla marketing
the word.
Yeah. He's like, sounds like there's going to be a crowd. I'm going to go down there and
proselytize,
raise hell about.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
That's amazing.
Back to story number 1.
But if they call them saucy nugs, then some
3.
stoner could come in there and think that it's some ganja and sue him for that.
Hold on a minute. You guys call weed saucy nugs?
You could. I'm sure there's somebody out there. Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about some saucy nugs? You ever see Chester's tattoo on his arm?
Okay, moving on. Too many stories.
This comes down to why the FDA exists, right?
Uh-huh.
Like patent medicine.
Oh.
Okay. And that is why you cannot call a vegan, whatever it is, sandwich a Reuben sandwich.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot
everybody
about that.
knows. Corned beef. Okay. And pastrami does not cut it as a Reuben sandwich either.
Yeah.
That's
one quick-
pastrami sandwich.
Before back to this guy that had to move into town. I do want to pick up what you're saying because it is frustrating what you're saying. And it would be like, if you're vegan, besides people that have like some kind of major dietary reason they need to be vegan, which I'm sure happens. If you eat meat, you're going to die or something. I don't know. But normally I would guess like 90%, whatever the hell, of vegans are for ethical reasons. So they have come to a position where they're saying like, I believe it is wrong to consume meat. Well, say you have give me another ethical infraction. I don't want to do like pedophiles.
Well, that's where I went with this.
Okay, I got it. Oh, no, go ahead.
It is. It's like your sexual preference.
Yeah, let's do bestiality.
Right? Sexual preference is a perfect one. Like I am staunchly this way, but I happen to put things in my mouth that resemble this other thing. But don't confuse that because this is the way I am.
Let's say you have a hog fetish.
Jeepers.
And you recognize that is just wrong. That is not a thing. That is not a thing you can be partaken in. But then you come home with a hog suit. You see where this is going?
No.
Is that better? So this guy.
Anyway, Ya Yang is here.
I really
this guy
thought the door was open for Yia and Ya to jump in on the vegan side of things, but
is there anything to add? I'm cutting a lot of stuff out, but I do got to get back to this guy.
Like we even with what I actually wrote a little article about it. I was asked once in a panel, Hmong sausage is something that we make at our restaurant, and it's an old recipe my father gave me. Right, he passed it down, and it became really just kind of popular around Minneapolis in the way we make it. And there was a panelist who somebody asked me on a panel.
Can you give us a brief descriptor?
Hmong sausage?
Yeah.
So it is our recipe we use, and the thing that Dad showed me was 70% shoulder, 30% belly, and then the aromatics inside is lemongrass, ginger, garlic, shallots, fish sauce, Thai chilies, and then it's very important because the grind is coarse. It's not a lot of people. They do sausage. They're more like Eastern European style, where it's you kind of get it emulsified. Ours is more coarse because of the fat content is so high that you actually want that fat to render. And while you're grilling it, you're not grilling it hot. You're kind of grilling it higher, so it renders. Now, you know what I'm talking about. It renders, and as it does that,
you say you're not grilling it hot. You're grilling it lower.
Yep. Sorry. So what I meant high was like higher on the grill.
I got you.
Yeah. And you kind of let it go. And I teach a lot of our chefs and cooks who cook with us. They aren't, a lot of them aren't Hmong. So I have to re-engineer their mind to be like, no, we're not cooking this like if it was an Eastern European style, sausage. This is Southeast Asian sausage, so it's a little different. Anyways, there was a lady asked and said, hey, would you ever, she's like, I'm vegan. Can you make this sausage vegan? And I politely said to her no, because
you realize this is 100% made out of pork. This is 70% pork and 30% pork.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. But I wasn't trying to be mean to her. But then I also said to her too that there's a legacy that comes along with this. See, my father, when he came to this country, he didn't have anything. He didn't have land. He didn't have anything in his name. But what he did was he knew how to do this. And then he passed it to me, and it was one of those things that as kids, we learned how to do it with him. And for me, it's more than just some recipe where I could just change it to people's preference. It's like, no, we're going to stick to this.
Got it.
And so for me, it runs deeper in that. And it to me, like, there's sometimes food, and I'm a food guy. It runs deeper than that, to say, oh, hey, like, let's make this vegan Reuben, whatever, and it's like, yeah, but we always say with our restaurant is when you eat something, be curious about it. Like, why is it the way it is? And so that's where I come from, especially with this whole like changing it this way. And so that was like my big thing. And then a lot of the vegans got mad at me. And then, when this article came out and everyone was like, oh my gosh, like you hate vegans. And I'm like, I never said I hate vegans. It's like, I never said it. I said that we choose to make this way and keep it this way. I mean, we have people who aren't pork eaters, and they're like, well, could you do it with chicken? I'm like, doesn't taste the same. And to me, why it's so important to me was that this is part of Dad's legacy. See, my father didn't have this, like, he's not like, my parents don't have this thing where it's like, this is this land, and we're going to give this to you when we pass away. No, he didn't, but he had these recipes. It's his legacy.
Yeah.
And it's like we get to carry it and we get to pass it down. And so, we could probably talk about this forever, but just this idea of like what it means to be Hmong is to carry down these legacy, to carry down this, these things that it's not written in a document anywhere, but we carry down from our parents and they took it from their parents. And so for me, when it became that, vegan issue, I was just like, hey, this is where I'm at, and then everyone just, everyone on the
Well,
internet.
it's such an oddball thing, right? It's like really an inappropriate question. It's like, can you take that very unique and special thing to you?
Yep.
And then completely change it?
Yep.
For my personal taste?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, again,
can you leave?
Yeah.
Man, I don't have any ill will toward vegans.
I don't too.
Yeah, I think it's funny.
Right.
I like to laugh about it.
Yeah,
I like to laugh about a lot of stuff.
But then, like, even with the article you're talking about, I'm like, I'm firmly, I believe in the way that you believe, where it's like, like everyone, like if we're gonna stand for like the First Amendment right, if we're gonna stand for that, other side, we gotta keep it consistent.
Yep.
We gotta keep it consistent, and that's how I believe that. It was like, bro, go find another place to live, Well,
let me tell you this dude's situation. He moves to this neighborhood, and they find out that he hunts, and they start leaving him letters.
Oh boy.
Even to this point, I'm taking his word for it here. I don't know. This is what he said. He said he gets a letter that says, "This community is vegetarian and doesn't agree with your hunting presence or the presence of murdered meat in the neighborhood."
I'd love to know the size of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
He's wondering, what would you do to keep things in the neighborhood civil?
Man, I just confused if he's a hunter and stuff and why he's living there. Was that like
Well, how the hell would you know?
I mean, if it's a vegetarian neighborhood, I mean, you think they'd have a sign.
Was it in the contract? You sign a renter's agreement. If it's not in the contract, you should be able to eat meat.
I agree with you. Yeah, if the landlord made it very clear.
No, this dude, I don't think this is that. He's just pointing out that just happens to be where he lives.
Oh.
It was, so he got a letter from a neighbor saying that about the neighborhood, but this is not a formal thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I think he's just saying, so outside of any rule breaking, he's wondering, how do you maintain civility? I would
invite them all over for a barbecue.
Burgers.
That's not going to work.
Meat diplomacy.
You could have them over for a veggie barbecue. And then say, after they eat, say, hey, let's chat, because there's a little problem.
I would just chat
if you want to try it, I have some of this freshly killed venison over here that's pretty tasty, that ate nothing but plants.
I eat a lot of grilled zucchini this time of year on the barbecue. That's good stuff,
Chester, let me tell you what I think, then I want you to say what you think, and that'll be the final word. I think that he should go about his business, but just don't rub their noses in it. Like, don't.
Or is he hanging deer off the porch?
If you can hang your deer in your backyard just as well as you can hang it in your front yard, hang it in the backyard.
Yeah, I would.
I don't know.
I would, if he's getting all these letters and stuff, there's not much he can do about it, other than maybe I would probably talk to the landlord and try and have a nice civil conversation, even though they might not understand that they make the choices that they do for reasons.
I don't think it has anything to do with the landlord. There's nothing about renting. This is just his neighbors.
Okay.
He's got neighbors that are hostile to hunting.
These people are not going to be appeased until he quits hunting.
Okay, well then, yeah, just keep to yourself, or the people that are sending you the letters, because I don't know how many people are sending him letters and stuff. Maybe just literally try and have a civil conversation with them and be like, you guys make the choices that you make for reasons that you stand by, and please let me make the choices that I stand by, and I won't shove it in your face. I won't be roasting a pig in my front yard. I'll cook it.
I'd put a little chunk of bloody hide maybe in their mailbox.
I just need to go. He's going to be like The Burbs. Remember that movie, Tom Hanks?
That is a phenomenal movie.
Try and keep it to yourself.
The kill them with kindness. I'm a big, you can just grind people down with kindness, and you kind of get satisfaction out of it because it's just irksome.
Yep.
But they can't say anything. They can't respond.
That's a good point.
Oh, they'll even send more letters.
Right. But I had the impression that when I was living in Ketchum, the neighbors across the street from me did not like me for whatever reason. No idea. And I was always cordial and, would wave when they'd pull in or whatever, but kind of a wide street. It's not like it was forced interaction at all. And one day I look out the window, and I was always out and about working on the place. running a chop saw in the front yard and stuff like that, but not like, would be like normal business hours, not crazy early or crazy late. One day I look across the street and here's mom, dad, the 2 kids, a dog, like little nuclear family. And they have a brand new refrigerator in the box in the back of this guy's pickup. And they're trying to negotiate this thing out, and it's not going well.
Mm.
And so I drop what I'm doing, run across the street. I'm like, hey, can I help you? And they're like, no. And I was like, you really look like, can I just help? And kind of force the issue a little bit. In 15 seconds, had the refrigerator out safely. Now it's on the ground. They have a dolly. I'm like, I can help you get it inside. And they were like, nope. And literally never spoke to me from that day forward.
Really?
Yeah, just bizarre. Some people are just that way.
Couldn't kill them with kindness.
Yeah, the moral of the story is some people are just that way. Right? It's like, doesn't matter what you do. So I wouldn't go out of my way to change my life, but, they're miserable inside their house writing letters, and you got to understand that too.
Yeah, and I've learned too, man, like hurt people, like people that are hurt, they hurt people, because it's like you have all this BS inside of you and you got to project it somewhere, and then being hurt sometimes, like, they hurt people. And that's where, I've learned that in my lifetime is hurt people. And sometimes that's like the final answer. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. There's nothing else.
Nothing you're going to do.
Yeah, nothing you can do about it until, they get help, or until they, recognize that hurt, or until they, confront that hurt,
Can you tell me how your name changed over time?
Yeah. So the name given to me at birth was Yeah.
Yeah.
So you actually can have 2 years in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
The story is I was very sick, and in the Hmong culture, sometimes they, there's a lot to do with the namesake.
Okay.
And so in the Hmong culture, sometimes when you just don't get better, they change your name.
Oh.
To you, and they'll say,
do you know what was did you have a specific ailment, or you just weren't thriving?
No, they just said I was just sick all the time. Yeah. And so, one of the first, I guess you could say remedy, they'll maybe consult with the shaman, and then a lot of times they'll just say, hey, maybe you just need to change his name. And actually, in this case, my parents gave me to my aunt and uncle, and my uncle was a deacon of the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And so they gave me to go live with my aunt and uncle. And
because you weren't doing well.
Because I wasn't doing well. And so...
At what age?
I want to say this is when I was just a few months old even.
Okay.
And so since he was a Catholic, a deacon in the Catholic Church, there's a translated Bible in Hmong. So, and in there, John the Baptist, the name translated in Hmong is Ja. So I shared this when I was here the first time. My name is Ja in Hmong, and so he named me renamed me John the Baptist. My name after John the Baptist in the Hmong translated version of the Bible, and I got better. And then they gave me back to my parents.
So in our culture, it's animism, right?
Yeah.
So it's the belief of the ancestors are the good spirits and they're evil spirits. So when Ya was young, I this is from what I've learned. I bet you it was probably like, okay, we're gonna change his name because we're gonna trick the evil spirits who's making him sick to think that it's a different person.
Sure.
So that's the changing of the name. And so I have friends who have had name changes and stuff like that. And then even that whole idea of like what the name carries along with it and the meaning. And so my name Yia, which Ya used to be Yia, it literally translates to iron skillet or a frying pan.
Yeah, it's true.
Really?
So if you go into
Really?
I hated it growing up, man. Dude, being a
Are
monk,
you kidding me?
bro,
That is a
it's-
strong
no.
name.
well, you guys
skillet.
might think it's cool, but not when you were
Cool
7
now.
years old
Yeah.
and you're with all your cousins. Then like, hey, where's the And then
Yeah.
they'll be like, no, him. Like, no, not him. Like, you know, you got made fun
so
of.
it's
all
not
the
a
time.
common name.
Not really.
It's
How many years do you guys know?
Not like
Well,
a few.
one here.
Yeah. But here's the deal. My youngest brother's name is Hmong, which means blessing of God. Literal translation is blessing of God. So we have a
No question who the
we
favorite
have-
kitten is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a callback.
So we have like, you know, like a pan, an iron skillet, and then we have blessing of God. You know, it's like, dude, come on. We know.
How directly does that mean iron skillet?
It's literal.
Yeah,
literal.
yeah.
Like, lugia means the iron skillet or the wok or the, you know, the pan, you know, the frying pan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
hated
what
it growing
means.
up.
Well,
Can I tell you that when I got my
but
citizenship?
I got one more question
Okay.
though, about the name thing.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
so I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Earlier I was talking about being out on book tour. When I was out on book tour, I met a kid, and his name was Talon, which I thought was a great name. His
Mhm.
name's Talon.
Yeah.
So clearly, it's the foot of a predatory bird.
Yeah. It's freaking awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a name. So when I hear Talon, because it's not a common name,
Mhm.
I make the thing that like, that name means a raptor's claw.
Mhm.
If I meet an Autumn, I'm like, Autumn is a name. But if she were to go to another country and they speak a different language,
Mhm.
and people are like, well, what does your name mean? And she would say, well, my name's Autumn. It means the season between summer and winter.
Mhm.
That might seem noteworthy
Mm-hmm.
to someone, but then this Autumn would be obligated to say, but it's so common, no one thinks of it that way because it's so integrated into naming.
Yeah.
So if your name's Iron Skillet, it's enough that people are like, hold on a minute, your name's Iron Skillet? Or is it so integrated that it's not noteworthy?
So the literal translation is iron skillet, you know, or wok or whatever, you know, an iron skillet, iron pan. But my mom said the metaphorical name represents like an iron skillet or pan is it's a vessel you use to cook with, and she said that what she said to me was that it means that like you will be a servant of men, like in a good way, like not in a, you know what I mean, like to serve or to help. You know,
really?
But yeah, but then I'm like, dude, he got blessing of God. You know, it literally means blessing of God. You know, but nah, man, it's one of those things.
Has he lived up to it?
Yeah, I mean, he's incredible. I love my little brother. Like,
Tell me his name again.
Gomhong Gomhong.
What do his American buddies call him?
So it's spelled Koob, Moob. That's the Hmong spelling. So growing up, they just called him Koob, Koob. So they just call him Koob or Kubi. Yeah. So.
And pronounce his name again for me.
In Hmong, it's Gomhong.
Okay.
Or sometimes we just say Hmong.
So how would a native speaker say your name? Very similar to what we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
they would.
I
Okay,
get my name butchered all the time. So when I got my citizenship, they asked the last question they ask you is, would you like to have a new name? Because you can take an American name.
Who asked you this?
The
immigration people.
officer. Yeah.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, you can get it, dude. In college, I had a list of like what names and all my buddies can pick, you know? And it was like, I literally, when she said this and I was sitting in the office with her, I almost want to be like, Optimus Prime. Please call me Optimus. Like, and that would be my my government name, Optimus Prime Vang.
Oh, dude, man.
Can you imagine getting like credit card statements from Optimus Prime? You know, like, dude, that or Chad.
I don't think that guy.
Optimus Prime
he
opening
pays
a
his
second
credit.
location.
Yeah, I don't think he pays his credit
Yeah,
card
Optimus
bill.
Prime doesn't pay credit card bills. Like, hey, Amex, Optimus Prime here.
You know who you're dealing with?
Yeah.
You know what I could do to this place?
Oh, dude, it was that, or it was like Chad or Trevor. I always joked about that. You know, just get a good white name, a good strong.
Did you know people? Well, first off, how old were you?
Oh, when I got my citizenship, it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, it was pretty recent. Yeah. I just kind of waited. You know.
You only became a U.S. citizen 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah.
What year did you move to the U.S.?
88. So it was a long way.
At what age did you move to the U.S.?
I was 4.5, 5. So started kindergarten right away.
So give me the basic chronology where and when you were born. How, like the flow, because I know you mentioned the refugee camp. Right?
Yeah. So my parents met in Ban Vinai, which is a very famous big the largest refugee camp, northern Thailand. It's like 10 kilometers off the borders of Laos and Thailand. That's where a lot of Hmong people came to after the war.
That's where my dad spent Peace Corps there for 4 years teaching small engines and stuff.
What year? I mean, what are the years? Do you know?
A while ago.
Like what year was he there? Like
I'm not sure, but it was a while. Like probably like.
How old are you?
Shoot him a text, Chester.
Maybe they overlap.
Yeah.
And actually, I think Ye's family and my family overlapped in the camp.
When did you guys leave?
We left in 80.
Okay, yeah, we left in 88. Yep. Yeah, my dad had a chance to leave early, but then he stayed because my dad fought in the war, and and it's just to hear their stories of what they did, running missions for the CIA and the U.S. government, in northern Laos. There,
y'all sent me a great book about all those campaigns. What was that book called, y'all?
Tragic Mountains.
Tragic Mountains, a good one. Yeah.
He sent me a book that details all those campaigns.
Yeah, and it goes back and for the history too, like fighting with the French back in the day, and just back. But
yeah, it was a good book.
88, we left. We landed in St. Paul, Minnesota. And we came there, and then we moved out to like.
But I want to back up on one thing. Your folks met as refugees.
Yeah. So my dad fought in the war. He escaped. My mom, they escaped. They had a horrible time. They got caught. Were put in prison camps by the communists. Finally escaped that, and then in 77 they met in the camp. And then in 78, they got married, and then they were there until 88. So 10 years they were there. Yeah,
10 years in the camp.
Yeah, because because the Hmong people were stuck because the Americans didn't want them because they're like, I don't know. The Thai government was like, dude, we don't we're borders with Laos, and Laos doesn't like you guys, so we don't want to, So literally, it was this really awkward Even Hmong people that were born in the camp at that time I'm not considered a citizen of Thailand, but I was born in Thailand. So I am.
But your family came from Laos. Your parents were born Laotian. But they don't hold, there's no citizenship for them for Laos. Yeah.
So do you have a second citizenship somewhere?
No. I was just kind of.
You were like a citizenless person.
Huh. In a way,
citizenshipless person.
Yeah, but one of the crazy things is when I got my citizenship, a buddy of mine who, his friend came to me, it was a couple years ago, and he said, hey, why would you want to be a citizen of America? Like right now, America, things weren't, this is after, things aren't going too hot for America. Why would you want to be a citizen of America? And I'm like, bro, you were born here. You became a citizen when you were born here. My grandparents and my parents fought a war to get me here. I feel like it was a little different for me. I always talk about, I was talking about this scene from Saving Private Ryan, at the end when, Tom Hanks' character, Captain Miller, he's dying and he looks at...
Tom Hanks dies in the end of Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Come on, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And
it's like slow bleed out.
I know that movie really devolved. It starts out like all this grand D-Day and then there's they have that, it kind of centers in on that really bad German.
It's like a clock winding down.
Yeah, and then at the end...
He dies in the end.
Yeah, at the end. Well, remember, because they all died fighting Private Ryan, right? And he whispers, Captain Miller to Private Ryan whispers and says, earn this. And then, and then it goes into the present, and he's, he's this old guy now that he's standing over Captain Miller's grave, and he looks at his wife, and he's an old grandpa, and he goes, did I live a good life, And I tell people...
So Tom Hanks meaning... earned the sacrifice that was made.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that to me, it's a good haunting I have. That when I got my citizenship, I thought about my grandpa who I never met, my dad's dad who died in this war, and the sacrifices they made, and some of my uncles who have passed away in the war to get us here, right? So I've learned that freedom isn't free. You might not have paid for it, but somebody did. Mm-hmm. And that's and then even understanding the Hmong are some of our dads and our grandpas who fought for America before they even were given the ability to step foot in America. So they fought for a country that later on denied them. And to me, that's true patriotism. That's where I think that's what really wrapped in my head as I got older. I'm like, I want to be a citizen because there comes a point for me where I'm like, what am I doing with the sacrifice that was done for me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was really important for me to go through that process, become a citizen, and to be able to talk about it and to honor them, to honor their legacy, to honor who they are through. And it's as simple as through the food we make. And we get to talk about that. It's so cool. We get to travel the country. I get to do shows and talk about the legacies of, my father, my grandfather, by the sacrifices they made for this country. And I get to talk about that by cooking Hmong food. And so that's why one of the things I get really excited about.
I want to get back into a little bit of stuff from early in your life, but I think that growing up I grew up in Michigan, spent a lot of my life in Montana, a handful of other states as well. I know about Hmong people through the lens of hunting.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like if I didn't know, there's these, if I didn't know that there was these avid hunters in the U.S. that came from Laos as refugees, like I wouldn't know about Hmong culture. I know it through the hunting lens. If you're a Hmong chef and you're bringing a cuisine around, I have to imagine that at times you need to go, before we get to the food, let me explain that we exist. Meaning everyone holds in their head, like all Americans hold in their head, like, oh, Mexican food. Yeah, it's this country to the south of us. They speak Spanish. I got the basic gist. But to say to most people Hmong food, they're not the hell. I mean, I would say the majority of people aren't going to know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
True or not true?
Completely true.
Yeah.
So, if, I get some crap from, I call them hardliner Hmong people. They're like, you aren't making real Hmong food. It's blah, 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 blah. You're bastardizing our food to make money. Like,
they do that?
Dude. Like, yeah.
Holy cow. That's not you're not suffering that alone.
No, yeah. I know. Every culture has that, right? Your own people kind of like, what? So one of the things I say within our restaurant, we have this mantra we always say. We say, every dish has a narrative. If you follow that dish long enough and close enough, you get to the people behind the food. And once you're there, it's actually not about food. It's about people. That food is a catalyst into cultivating great relationships. So that's why I ask people every time you eat a food and you go, hey, I want to change it, or it should be changed this way, how we were talking about?
Yep.
I always go, hey, ask yourself why it was made like that. Because if you follow the story, if you follow those crumbs, I bet you get to the people. And once you get there, you get to know their story. And then it opens your eyes of saying, this is why the food is done this way, And so I grew up not wanting to cook Hmong food. I didn't want to be a cook at all, dude. I went to school for all this stuff. Like I graduated college with a degree in interpersonal communication, a minor in PR and marketing. Like I wanted to run as far as I could from
What
food.
does interpersonal communication mean?
So you work with a lot of, it's kind of one-on-one. From when you major in that, you can go to grad school, you can do, you can teach it, and then you can work like doing counseling, counseling, therapy, you can do all that, after that. But
you were raised eating Hmong food?
Oh yeah, dude. Like that. That was it. That's what mom knew how to cook, and that's what we ate, and it was incredible. But
did you think burgers were good?
Yeah, but at the end of the day too, I'm a Wisconsin boy, right? So Culver's, double cheeseburger, butter burger from Culver's. Come on, man. Like cheese curds. I ain't mad at that. So yeah.
What's that saying? Makes Butterburger better? Like
better brand of beef.
Yeah, better brand of beef makes Butterburger better.
Yeah. So like. I growing up, it was like, do you like Hmong food or do you like American food? Or the Hmong word for American is mika. And like, do you like mika food or do you like American food? And I'm like, yes. Like, I could like both, right?
What's mika mean?
Mika means Hmong. It's the Hmong way of saying American.
Oh, it is? Okay, so I thought it was like an abbreviation.
Yeah, it's like a shortened version.
Yeah. So our parents couldn't say American, but in their accent and alliteration, it came out Mika. So Mika. So when you're around Hmong people and you hear Mika, they're probably talking about you guys. I'm just gonna be honest.
So when okay, I just want to understand the relationship between Hmong food and American food for a prior generation. So your parents had a long history in their home country.
Yep.
Were they when you were a kid and you guys went out, if kids are like, hey, I want to go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Did they embrace that? Or were they reluctant to get into that because it would mean that it would take you down this path of moving away from Hmong food, moving away from Hmong culture? Or were they like down with America? Not down like
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes out wrong. Did they embrace sort of like fast food culture, or did they resist it because it would be a forfeiture of culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think my parents, it was survival. It wasn't like, hey, like, so right now I get this great opportunity to talk about the in-depth understanding of Hmong food and what it represents. My parents growing up, it was like, how do we work our job that we're getting paid $8 an hour, and how do we provide for our family? Yeah. So it wasn't like they had this moment of like, oh, like, let me think about how our food can influence the way that our kids think about our culture. No, it was like, what can we scrounge around to survive? So sometimes if it's a $1.99 Happy Meal at McDonald's back in the day when it was $1.99, remember that, boys? Like, then that was it. Yeah. Some days, some days it's like if some noodle dish, some blinkjaw dish or whatever, like, and then they had to make it work with the garden, and they just pull stuff from the vegetables from the garden. Then that was it, But what I get to do is I get to look back on those moments because I have the privilege now to look back and think about that. I have the privilege to dissect and break down the thoughts of like what this food represents for our people. Because they sacrificed and they worked so hard for me, and so I don't think that because I think that we do a lot of shows and stuff like that, and I think that there are editors and producers who want to give me this beautiful Netflix chef's table, kind of like, you stood there with your mom and you guys made sticky rice together. I'm like, dude, it wasn't like that, like there's not that, what I'm saying, where it's like all chef has this like beautiful story of like sitting with grandma and she's teaching you how to make whatever. It's like, nah, man, like they were hustling all the time. Like, we ate instant ramen, we ate, I learned how to cook fried eggs with tomatoes, and stuff like that. Those were the things we did. There's nothing sexy about it. It was tough. We lived on food stamps,
Yeah.
And it was like,
I got you.
But like, man, like to me, I feel so blessed to be in a position where I am, where we get to interact with people who value food at a very high economic level, where it's like they're willing to pay a lot of money for food. And we also get to tell this incredible story that comes along with it, So, yeah.
Did your folks raise food when you were growing up? You talk about having a garden.
Yeah, man. You understand anything about Hmong people? So right now, my parents, they're in their 70s, they're retired. They have a 10-acre farm, right? My mom calls it a little garden, but it's 10 acres, and everything they grow every year, they harvest it and bring it over to the restaurant. So, yeah, and that's what it is.
Seriously?
Oh, dude. Yeah.
So your restaurant serves food that your folks raise?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole point of the restaurant. Like, we just got done with the state fair, so Minnesota State Fair is huge. It's like this year they had 1.8 million people walk through in 12 days, right? And so my mom makes these kalapao, or they're these steamed buns, right? So she makes these steamed buns, a family tradition. And this year we sold a little bit over 23,000 of them. And so my mom and my aunt and 4 church ladies made 23,000 of these, steamed buns. And that's my mom has this thing where she says, I don't know business, I don't know math, but my hands have been taking care of you for the last almost 40 years. Until the day I die, I will always take care of you. If my hands can make it and I can produce it, I will do it for you. And so it's like when you hear stuff like that,
mom.
Bro, when you hear stuff like that, how can you not keep talking about them, And so like, I get super emotional about it, but like, man, it's like, no quit. She's in her 70s, no quit. She's out working half our chefs, and I love it. And it's not something where I asked her to, but she's just like, this is what we do. This is how we help each other. This is what we do. And that's what I love about our culture. There's no quit. It is, if we come together, we can accomplish more. Dad told me that the Hmong culture, in the Hmong people, what happened was hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there's always this argument between the 18 clans, right? Who is the rightful clan name to lead these people, right? So it's like this fight. It's like Game of Thrones style, right? It's like, what clan should be is the direct line for the first Hmong Empire? And they've been arguing about this for thousands.
What clan are you?
I'm a Vang.
Okay, so you're the Yang clan, Vang clan.
Yeah. And so it's like Game of Thrones, whatever kind of deal. And
which clan is better?
I don't know. I don't know.
So I would say the Yangs.
Yeah,
Yangs are better.
Everyone always. Yeah, but that's how it is.
Yangs are better.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I just heard from y'all.
You got it. You win. But what I mean, Dad said that during the war, during the genocide of our people. So you have to realize that in the mountains of Laos, there's about 300,000 Hmong people that live there. Through the genocide of the Hmong people after the war in 1975, there about 55,000 Hmong people were killed just slaughtered. So think about that. 55,000 to 60,000 Hmong people killed, and there was about 300,000 people there. And he said it got so bad that the 18 clans came together and said, we can't fight anymore about which clan should be the number one. We have to unite. And if we don't unite, our children will never be free. They will live in war. And Dad said that they made this commitment. The 18 clans made this commitment to each other. It says, no more will we fight. We have to come together. And, I always say that if you want to know our food, you have to know our story, right? And it's kind of what you were asking me. And I always say that our cultural DNA is intricately woven into the foods that we eat as Hmong people. And I asked my mom, what's the best way to describe Hmong people to people who have, or Hmong food to people who haven't eaten Hmong food before? And she said balance. Because you look at Hmong food, we have 4 basic elements always on the table. There's a rice, there's some kind of protein, there's a vegetable, and sometimes that vegetable is in a broth, and then there's a hot sauce. And she said, out of all those 4 elements on the table, one is never better than the other, because we need all of them together to make this complete meal. So I always get asked, what's your favorite Hmong dish? I'm like, I can't talk about, the grilled pork that my dad taught me how to make, to grill over a fire. I can't talk about that without talking about the sticky rice. Well, I can't talk about the sticky rice unless I'm talking about the guotsal, which is, the pepper sauce. And man, the Hmong mustard green we have that mom grows in her garden has this bite that cuts through the porkiness and the fattiness of the pork. So you need that too. So I can't talk about one dish. It's all about a combination of one. And, in the last few years of me being able to do the show Feral for outdoor and being able to meet all these different people, I've really learned that the Hmong mentality when it comes to life and food, it's basically conservationism. It is this idea that everything's on a balance. It's an ecosystem. If one thing goes wrong, like for example, like if the sticky rice, yeah knows what I mean. If the sticky rice is not on the table, it's like you don't start eating. It's like, nah, man, we need the rice there first.
You gotta hold off.
Yeah, and we used to forget about putting the pepper, the hot sauce on there, and my mom would stop dinner and we would quickly make it and then put it on the dinner before it comes together. And it's this idea that this is an ecosystem. Everything needs to work, and that's what I think about Hmong food. And when I talk about the philosophy of Hmong food, that's what I'm talking about,
So in the most basic sentence level way, what would you say? Like, what is Hmong food?
Yeah, so I always say that Hmong food isn't a type of food; it's a philosophy of food.
Okay.
And what is that philosophy? It's the philosophy that we live in a living world around us, and using the living world around us to make food that nourishes our soul and brings our community together. And so the great thing about Hmong food, and this is what I love, and I'll get pushback from some of the hardliners, is that Hmong food is not, it's representative of what regions we're in. So we're scattered all around. Did you know that in 1980, 600 Hmong people resides in Missoula? They came.
I knew
here.
that.
Yeah, they settled in Missoula.
There,
yeah.
I was gonna say
they
famous for their gardens.
Yeah, they dominated the farmers market.
Absolutely, because we are people of the ground. The
but I feel like a French person that lives in the French countryside. If I said, like, what is traditional French food? They could say the sentence you just said.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm saying there's got to be another way to describe Hmong food.
Well, what I talk about with Hmong food is that like our story is involved in it. So, for example, my dad always said to me, no matter where you are in the world, wherever you go, if you find another Hmong person there, you always find family. So they kind of what we talked about in the beginning, right? Like, yeah, if I go to Idaho somewhere and I see another Hmong family, I'm like, whoa, what's up? But we share that same history, right? That's what happens when you have you don't have a country of your own, right? And so I would say that if you want to talk about flavor profile, our flavor is representative of Southeast Asia. So you got your lemongrass, you got your gingers, you got your garlic, a lot of you're kind of like the weird cousin to like Lao, Thai, Vietnamese food, a little bit of that. But I think that if you really want to get to know Hmong food, you have to know the Hmong people regionally, because there's Hmong people that live out in Fresno, California. There's people that live in Boca Raton. There's people that live in Little Rock, Arkansas. So they're
do you see manifestations of like where those regions have bled into the culinary tradition?
Absolutely. Because
the thing I wanted to ask you about is when your folks, like, because your folks grew up in proximity, no doubt, to raising food and sourcing food. All of a sudden you wind up on another continent. Just the climatic with gardening, food that's available, right? They had to have been forced in some way to lean into this whole new way of trying to achieve something that made sense to them.
Absolutely.
From an ingredient standpoint.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I love the fact that they did, because it's all about advancing our people. So in April, I got a chance to go back to Laos. And I actually, I was with a production crew. We did this, we filmed this little doc series. And I actually went to the village that my mom was born in. Okay. And I found out that I have 100 years of our family lineage comes out of that village. And I went to the exact same spot.
Are there still Hmong in that village?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
They came back after the war. Yep.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Hmong people who couldn't escape, they just came back and lived in the mountains. And they just kept quiet, And so I'm here in this village, and I'm standing on the.
What's the name of the village?
I think it's Bonsan right now because it didn't have a name, but the government named it with there's like this little river that comes by it, and so they named it Ban. Ban in Laotian and Lao, it means village of,
Okay.
So San is the name of the river, and it's in the mountains. And when I say it's in the mountains, like you're in a car, you're in a 4-wheel drive car, you're driving through the treacherous mountain for about, you're about 3-4 hours to get there. There's nothing up there, and there's people that live up there. And I remember standing on the plot of land where the house that my mom was born in, the little hut.
You kidding me?
Yeah, dude. And to find out that it was 100 years, like my great grandmother was a shaman in that village too. So like it's like our family is connected to that village.
So your mom had to explain like. Here, there.
No, my mom wasn't there with me. It was like another cousin of theirs that lived in Pansavan in Laos that kind of took me up there and says, "Hey, we found." Yeah, it was kind of like one of those things. I'm a late processor. I don't know about you guys, but like it was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is cool. And then I remember flying back we flying back. It's like 30-hour flight back, and I'm like just sitting in my plane seat, and I'm just started tearing up, and I'm like,
it started to hit you.
Yeah, and I'm like, what's going on, man? What's going on? And it starts hitting me like, dang, like. And mom's never been back there ever, in like almost 70 some years. She was born there, and they had to escape right away. They had to leave, because it was like, and so I was standing there and I'm watching all of this and I go, wow.
There's people living there.
Yeah, there's
people living in that spot.
Yeah. And I was watching the way that they make the food and stuff. And man, it still carries a little bit of like, there's these flavor tones and these notes that still carry. But if you go to those villages, their technology is barely past the Bronze Age, for real.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go in, it's just all like, it's very, very primitive, but the way they do things, I loved it, because I'm watching them do things and I'm like, bro, I'm like bringing that technique back like that. And I felt like, I've never been to Laos before, right? But I felt like the best way I explained it was like going to a home that you never been to, but you still feel at home there.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt up there. I was like, dude. And it was, seeing your own people there. And it was funny because, like, I'm a bigger dude. So I don't look like most Hmong kids,
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of times, like, I was there. They didn't think I was Hmong because the crew we were with had Lao, Thai, and, like white people. And so they were just like, they just thought I was one of the other helpers. And then I started speaking to Hmong with them. And they're like, what? And I'm...
Was it clear to him?
Yeah, I don't know. If you deal with this, but like I work with like a lot of non-Hmong people. So when I do speak Hmong, when I go home, right, with mom and dad, and then I'll speak Hmong. But I don't speak Hmong, like daily a lot, And I was really nervous. I was like, shoot, because like the OGs up there, man, they will wreck you if your Hmong is like, like if your Hmong isn't good or if you have the wrong accent, they're like, dude, you're a stupid kid. Like, don't even say that stuff to you. Like,
Yani says something similar about. We had a conversation recently where the Latvians in America police the Latvian, but then you go to Latvia, they just want to talk English.
Yeah.
Because they want to practice English.
It's rough. And when I got there was something inside of me. I don't know if it was like fight or flight inside of me that I started just speaking Hmong, and I did some of the translation part of the show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing a lot better than I am.
Can you give us a sense of what Hmong sounds like?
I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, just like, can you just say say some stuff? Just to give a sense of what the language sounds like for people. I'm guessing most people have not heard Hmong.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the white people at the table with y'all, we can. That's fine.
Yeah, like I'm hearing a bunch of white people talking about the Hmong.
I don't even know how to start it. It's so weird. I don't know.
I'll just say, nhớ dùng dùng xin chỉ có hồ lưu studio chỉ ta khen được chơi Hmong.
Yeah. Ủa cho cái bé tôi ok nó, bé chỉ ta thế bé and Bunning Mikano.
Okay, there's the Mikano.
Yeah, you hear that. Oh, that's about you guys.
How much overlap is there with? I'm a little ignorant on the language structure. Is there Laotian? There's like
there's Laotian.
Yeah, and is that the native language? Is called Laotian?
Yeah, Lao. Yeah.
Okay. Lao. Is there a lot of overlap or not a lot?
There's
of
a few words,
but they're like distinct.
Yeah. So for example, like the word burrito is not an English word, right?
Sure.
It's a Spanish word, but it's part of the English language. We say burrito, right?
Well, you can play it in Scrabble.
Yeah. But in Hmong words, there's a few words that I wouldn't say overlap, but it's like just because our cultures like are right with each other, they use different words. Like when I was in Laos, bathroom, and Hmong word is hona, that's bathroom. But for the Lao word is honam, you know? So it's like a little bit of accent.
That would be an example of a similarity.
Yep. You know, yeah. So
or
stuff
the
like
word,
that.
The word go, like
Bye.
bye. That's like I've learned that was that's Thai.
Yep.
Got it.
So Thai, Lao, you know, and even a little bit of Vietnamese, like they share, like culinary wise, they all kind of share the same kind of word, right? Even a little bit of Chinese, you know, like the steam bun, you know, like the Chinese steam bun is called bao, but the Lao, Thai, and Hmong version of it is kalabao.
Oh,
you know, because you have the word bao at the end, you know. So like there's all these little, like, you know, I don't want to say that they're crossovers, but there's like you pull from each other, right? Again, my example is always the word burrito. Right? When I told this guy once the burrito isn't, and he goes, no, that's like an American word. And I'm like, bro, burrito is not an American word, okay? And I had to explain to him. He's like, what? I always thought it was like an American thing. I'm like, stop, you know. But you know, like kind of like that.
Could you guys understand Thai?
I don't speak Thai. No. It's all, and you know, growing up, like you grow up with, like I don't know, I grew up
Hmong is its own totally different language,
and our language has 8 tones to it. So our language is completely tonal, right? So here's a funny one I always tell people. So when you don't know something,
this isn't related to the number of clans.
No, tones in your language. So for example, like when I say I don't know, like you know the word I don't know is guccipo. You know, but if you do it with the wrong tone, guccipo, which means I smell like fart. You know,
shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, farts. Yeah. So it's like that. So it's like when I have white friends.
What a minefield, man,
dude! Like when I
learn the language for someone else.
The thing is, when you have white friends, they're like, teach me a Hmong phrase, and I'm like, okay, but if you say it in the wrong tone, you're gonna totally say something horrible. Like, what do you mean? And then it's always like, it sounds the same, right? And I'm like, no, dude, you just said you smell like fart. Like, you know?
Yeah, Steve, the written form of the Hmong language wasn't actually created by a Hmong person. It was founded by a French priest.
Yeah.
So he came into, and I shared this a little bit when I was first here. He came into that region, worked with the Hmong, understood the language, learned the language, and came up with the written version of it in
using English letters.
Yep. Yes, using English
and tried
letters.
to dance around the tone issue.
Oh, he figured a way to he found
capture the tone.
He figured a way to capture the tones, and he created this in the early 40s.
Yeah,
you just add a lot more words.
More clarifying, yeah. By which I mean,
well, like what was incredible with what he did when he took our language from an oral history to a written history is he didn't realize what he did was he changed history for our people. So in our culture, everything's oral, right? So it's like you tell a story and the next person tells that story and they have to keep it to exactly the T, right? You can't divert from it. Because for us, like, for example, like my father would always tell us like two fathers making a deal. It was you just said it, you have people witness to say it, and then you shook your hand, and that was it. It wasn't like we write a contract and we sign it out. So in our culture, your word means everything. Being a man of honor, being a person of honor, being a person of integrity, that means everything. You keep to your word. You say, I'm going to be here on Tuesday to help you. I'm going to be here on Tuesday to help you. There's no contract that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. That's our culture. When the French priest came in and said, hey, I'm going to put this into written form, he changed our world because before, the way that we would tell our history is you hand it down from generation to generation. One father talks about his father who told them a story from his father, right? Our elders right now, our elders that are in the 70s and 80s that are passing away, they are our historical archives. Inside their minds hold our history. As they are passing away, our history is going with them. Mm-hmm. So there's a project that I'm working on saying, how do we record this? How do we write these things down? How do we film this? How do we record this? because the idea of just writing something down for our people was so brand stinking new in the 50s. It was like,
it's not going to adequately capture it.
Yeah. But what it does is you were able to record history. Like, for example, my father, when he came to this country, he had to make up a birthday because he didn't know when he was born. So he chose January 1st is his birthday. A lot of Hmong,
just the first date that came to my mind.
Well, a lot of Hmong, if you look at a lot of refugees and immigrants from Southeast Asia at the time, January 1st is what they use because it was the most simplest, like, hey, this is the day, you know? And then he was asked to give a signature.
But they're going off the Gregorian calendar and not the lunar calendar. But they just knew that it was a date.
No, they just did that because of the NGO workers that were in these refugee camps. It goes, well, January 1st, that's the first of the year.
Yeah, I got it.
And so that's what they did. I mean, and then he had to learn how to sign his name. And at the point, because he didn't have to, but now when he signed his name on those documents, like it was literally what he said was the NGO worker wrote out my dad's name in cursive, and then my dad put a paper on top and he traced it. So dad had to learn how to write in English. The first thing he wrote was his name. To sign his name on those documents for our family to come here, it changed the course of history for his family and changed the course of history for me. So like to me, writing is very important. And how it preserves our culture, that's very important. Because anytime we need information, what can we do? We go on our phone and we, you know, I don't second think, like reading, I don't think much about it. It's like, oh, I read. My parents can't read English and they can't speak English. And so growing up, when we went to doctor's visit, 8-year-old Yia had to be the translator. So I would imagine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, imagine how awkward it is you go into the doctor's office and you have to translate about your mom's health issues somewhere on her body to the doctor. And then the doctor had to tell you these other things about some infection, whatever. And then you had to explain that as an 8-year-old. We did that growing up. That's what we did. And I just thought that was normal. Yeah. But it's incredible about like the reading and writing and how that changed the course of history for our people.
I purposely text my dad in Hmong just to keep up with the reading and the writing. I learned how to read and write it.
Is there a Hmong keyboard on an iPhone?
No, we're going to talk to. We'll talk to Apple about that.
Yeah, it uses the regular English alphabet, and so if you know the 8 tones.
Also, the Hmong. There's no Hmong alphabet. There's no Hmong alphabet.
No. The French.
It's all phonetic.
Yeah, it's all English letters.
It's not phonetic because if I wrote some stuff out here and you read it, it'd be gibberish, right? So if you didn't know kind of the conventions of the language in order to use the alphabet,
using the letters as symbols, but it's not phonetic.
It's not phonetic, but you're using the letters as
the Roman
indicators of. What, for example, the last letter in the word, if I wrote out a word, the last letter indicates what tone you're supposed to say that word in.
Okay, let me hit you with this. You see, I'm using this conventional QWERTY keyboard or whatever. I'm using like these letters, the English alphabet, and I put down A. Okay. And you see A. What do you see when you see A in with your Hmong brain?
That's not a Hmong word.
Yeah.
Then
okay, but I'm saying the letter.
I guess I would go with I would start. It would start out as kind of phonetic. So I would say you're trying to get ah.
Yeah.
Right?
Ah.
Okay.
Ah is for A.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I thought you meant maybe that they were. It doesn't matter what I thought. I thought you meant that it's like they use these symbols but assign them totally different meanings.
No.
I think it's like if you wrote out dog, but then at the end of dog there was an S, then you wrote out dog, and then there might have been an R. You might say dog one way, that means one thing with the S, and then you might say dog with the R a different way,
tonally,
and it means something else.
Yeah. And then don't forget that in the Hmong language we also have 2 dialects too.
Yes, correct.
So 8 tones, 2 dialects.
Yeah, well, sometimes 3 because if you like the Hmong Yalana, they have their own dialect too. Then the Hmong Shua, they have their own dialect too. But basic Hmong, there's 2 dialects. You have your white and your green, or blue, because the Hmong word for green and blue is the same word, Jua, which means blue and green.
Huh. I got a couple questions.
Okay, here
just
we go.
Putting that out there before we get too deep.
Well, I'll tell you what I was going to ask. You just weave this in. I was going to ask, when you went to that village, did they have air guns and did they hunt and whatnot? Go on.
Yeah.
No, Yani's got questions.
You want to go there?
No, I just was going to have you throw it into the mix.
Oh, real quick one about birthdays. like prior to having a birthday or like picking a date, did they celebrate some sort of version of our birthday? Like, did the Hmong celebrate that before being Americans?
Annual milestone of some sort.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Go ahead, bro.
I would say even if they did, it probably wasn't like how we do it here.
No big
where
cake.
It's like a big
Candles.
deal. No cake and candles.
In the mountains of Laos, candles aren't like the number one priority to buy. It's like, oh, hey, we have 30 cents. Candles. That's where we're going.
And for the longest time, I would say that I don't even know my true birth date. Right? It was kind of just something that was given to me. Right. And so they kind of go by, actually, if you ask our parents, they'd be like, oh, yeah, you were born in this time frame.
It's like a guess.
Yeah.
The same thing with my mom.
You don't know your actual
Well,
birth.
I
job
the one
application time or school.
He's got a
application
government
time.
birthday.
I have one,
Yeah.
but is that really truly the day?
So you just you know if you were born in the spring or the fall.
Yeah, it's more
true,
like it's more of like a guess. It's like this.
What's
It's
really
kinda
funny
like-
though, this is exactly like talking to my mother. She'll be like, "Well, you're born in
Calving season."
You're like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, kind of
It's like
the
Chester's
harvest
kids. Like,
season.
you know,
the
like
harvest season
Steve
is
was
the big
fishing
deal.
walleye when you were born or something. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do want to hear about like the proteins, like the cooking side.
yeah.
So, not a lot of fish. I guess specific to your
It
region.
depends. Oh, like for our restaurant or like just for Hmong food in general.
I guess Hmong food in general.
No, it depends. I think that a lot of our people are mountain people, so it's what you get from the mountains, and then if there's streams and stuff like that, you get little fish, and stuff like that. But it's not, we're not like, we're not in the lowlands by the ocean. So it was like so the idea of shrimp and different kinds of octopus and stuff like that, and crabs, and that's really later on, because that's kind of like the high life. Like, and when I say in the mountains, dude, I'm talking about like the reason why in 1980 there's 600 Hmong people that ended up in Missoula was like they love the mountains because they just want to be left alone. That's like our people has been like, we want to be left alone. We want to be farmers. That's all we want to do. And so for them for them, it was like if you go to a city, it was like back in the day, in my mom's times, they said it would be like a 5 to 6 hour walk that you would just trek down the mountain. And then you sell some vegetables, you get enough money to buy salt, and then you just trek back up. And you'll use that salt, and then it's like when you get down there, you're like, whoa, you see these shrimp and crab, and it's like, wow, just to have one would be incredible, And so, but again, a lot of that changes with our people changing, as some Hmong people came down from the mountain and started living in the lowlands, and then even us being here in America, and I mean, I love seafood and. But normally you don't see that. It's it's a heavy pork, a lot of small games, and a lot of vegetables, a lot of broth, a lot of soup, a lot of stew. And if you want to go old school, I mean, it's a lot of the meat is actually jerkied, basically. Like they season it real, and then they hang it, and they have a fire inside. They hang it, and it's so cool to be in these villages and see them still using this technique. And they hang it from the top, and they dry it. And then you take the meat out when you're done, and what the meat really is it's a flavoring to your soups and your stews. And your broth. Yeah,
it's used conservatively.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you still see some hunting going on when you went back?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We were hunting like these like little small squirrels and, lizards, like monocle lizards. And it's just anything that the jungle provides, and that's the thing I love about being Hmong. And that's why
was the hunting deliberate, meaning like you were going out, or was just that you would encounter stuff throughout the day of raising your crops and traveling around? So again, in every culture, it's like the idea where it's like, hey boys, you want to go? Okay, cool, let's go. And so like sometimes it's literally like, hey, let's go out. Or a lot of times, dude, one of my favorite scenes where we went was they weren't Hmong, they were Lao, but there were like 5 or 6 of them. They have scuba gear on. They had a little gear set, and they jump in the river with little spear guns, and they would go spear like in the river. They go and they would go spear little tilapias. Oh, and they came out and they freaking looked like a bunch of Navy SEALs coming out of the water. And these like little like these Lao kids, and they all have little spear guns and then just fish on the other hand. And it was the most BA scene ever, standing on the river. And I'm like,
man, you would kick the crap out of any American kid, you know? I'm like, if North Korea ever attacks, I want you on our team, you know? And so, I mean, that's what it is. It's a lot of times when you're a little, you know, when you're growing up, especially with the boys, it's like, you go out with dad, you go out with your uncles, you learn. They have little like snares and stuff they set up, and, you know, and then, you know, you follow grandpa and you go and grab the snare and see, oh, look, they got a squirrel today or whatever, you know? And yeah, and so it was just part of the repeat. I mean, like we went and we even caught bats, you know, and so we ate bats and people were, you know, freaked out. They're like, oh, why would you do that? I'm like, you have to understand, we don't have a Whole Foods out here. Like, we have a whole jungle and you just get what the jungle provides for you.
How they target bats?
So you figure, like, they figure out a bat cave, you know?
Okay.
And then during the night, the bats will fly out. And so like 6:30 bats fly out and they just put up a big net and just catch all the bats in there. And
coming back into roost?
Well, when they're leaving.
They're catching them as they leave.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they just leave. And then they come back at like 6 a.m. So it's like, you know, that it's like a million of them and you put on net and they get all caught and, you know, and then you braise them and you eat them. Yeah. It was
just braise the hair right off of them.
Oh, well, they throw it over the fire to kind of char the hair off, and then they don't cut it out. You know, there's no, you know, whatever, and then
guts and all right into the pot.
and then they stick it in the bamboo actually, and they season it with like garlic, ginger, you know, and all that stuff, and then they put it in a bamboo, and they close the bamboo off with.
You mean put it in there like a container?
The bamboo, as
a
container. And then they put a little water in there, and then that becomes a steaming vessel, and they throw that water over the fire. So bamboo is like 90.
That's awesome.
Dude, like cooking inside of bamboo is like, by the way, that's going to be the thing where we want to try to do to just like, I don't know. I mean, it's just an old school way of cooking, but you really got to know how to do it. But like my father was telling me about it, where it's like, basically the bamboo itself it's a vessel, and bamboo is just water and moisture. So you put, you know, your meat in there, and then you close the end off with, banana leaves, and you just stuff it and you throw it right on the fire and just keep turning it, and it just braises inside.
The problem with that shit is I brought a bunch of that home. Our buddy Clay, he's got a bunch of bamboo in his yard. I brought a bunch home, but it's cool. But then as soon as it dries out, it just cracks to hell.
Yeah.
So you're gonna need a steady supply.
Yeah, you know? And it's really funny.
You won't be able to have one.
Well, down in North
years.
Carolina, there's a bunch of Hmong people that live down there. They planted bamboos in the back of their yard, and now it's like invasive there. And so they're just cutting down. And if I got some cousins down there, you call them, they'll just send you a bunch up.
No kidding.
Yeah, green bamboo, real fresh. So yeah.
What was your earliest experience in how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I was like 4.5.
So I'm assuming that your people, they didn't hunt and fish in the refugee camp. Just because of the nature of the camp, right?
They did too.
So, really? Like so you could they could go as they please within a certain limit.
Kind of, yeah. But I mean, it's a huge. So you got to realize that refugee camp held from 75 to 92 held 90,000 people. So it's like it's a city, and it was big, and there wasn't like here's the borders, here's the wall. It's just like, you know, you can go into the jungle and you can hunt and you can do things. There were people they had gardens, and you know they were, you know, people that were selling stuff in there too. So yeah.
Then when in the U.S., what was your earliest exposure to hunting here in the U.S.?
My parents like hunt. My aunts and uncle, or you know, my uncles and them hunt, and so it was, you know, when deer season came around, and you know, like we always had a deer. You know,
really?
One or two. Yeah. And the cool thing about the Hmong culture, and you can contest to this, is like the way that it works in our family, because I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. It was all cousins, right? Uncles, and them all living around there. And if one of them got a deer, no matter the time of the day, like if it was like 9 o'clock, we got a deer, they call, and then our whole family would just go over there, and everybody just breaks it down, and then we just make a meal out of it.
Oh, really?
You know? Oh, yeah, dude. Like, I didn't understand. I didn't know that you can get the deer processed. I was just like, wait, what? Like, you pay someone else to process your deer? I'm like, don't you guys just do it? And they're like, no, why? Or, you know, and it's just like, it was always like, and when I got into the food world, everyone's like, oh, nose to tail cooking, man. That's the cool thing, nose to tail cooking. I'm like, dude, we call that a Tuesday at our house. Like, that was an everyday thing. You know, so it was normal. It was normal growing up. You know, we didn't go to the grocery store for pork. Like, we went to an Amish farm, and then, like, picking lobster, Dad goes, that one. And then he does his thing to it, and then we all kids is like, okay, everyone grab a knife, and then we help break it down, you know? And that was like, I didn't grow up didn't go to basketball camp or, learning how to throw a baseball. This is what I did. And I thought it was normal. I thought it was like every kid did this. Then I remember the day I found out that, wait, you can just buy pork at the grocery store.
All chopped up.
Yeah, like what? It blew my mind in college when I figured that out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
At what point did you think that you were going to get into the food biz, like the restaurant business?
Yeah,
Did it seem like a lot of obstacles?
No, I was always, so I'm a like, if I touch it with my hand, I can understand it better. I'm not, my brothers and sisters are super academic. They're really smart. They're incredible. But for me, I was like, I'll read a book and I'm like, duh, I don't know what happened here, But like, if you put stuff in front of me and says, hey, like break down this chicken and I'm gonna show you where the joints are, or they're like, hey, this is how we break down a deer, or this is how we break down a rabbit. I could, like, my dad would show me, he'll break it up and goes, here are the joints you need to cut. Here are the 4 cuts. And I'm like, oh, cool. And it made sense to me. I didn't like, my parents didn't want me to cook because they felt that was a very hard job. My father said to me, he said, we came to this country so that you can I want you to sit in a nice office somewhere and signing people's checks.
Doctor or lawyer? Doctor or lawyer?
That was it.
That was your choices growing up.
Doctor, lawyer, or some kind of business person.
We heard that. We had a South Vietnamese dude explain that. He said, you're either a doctor or lawyer, you're not my kid.
Yeah. And I remember as a kid growing up.
3 choices.
Yeah. And as a kid growing up, I hated that. I was like, oh, frick. Like, I'm not smart enough to do this. And I remember this actually hit me probably about like 3 or 4 years ago. And I realized what my father was saying, because he would always be like, I don't want your hands and your knees to hurt like mine. Because my dad was a carpenter. He was a welder. He was he built homes, And he goes, I don't want this for you. He goes, I take the pain so you would never have to. And as a kid, you didn't understand that. You're like, whatever, Dad. As an adult, like he always said, my dad always say, means don't be like me, I'm dumb. Yeah, I want you to be smarter than me. I want you to be better than me. And I get super emotional about this, but like, I remember I was cooking at this grill out and it was huge. It was a long day and my hands were all sooted up from the, from cutting all day and from working in the fire. And my hands are just like tired and my knees are tired. And in that moment, I was like, I feel the closest to my father. Where I'm like, I am you, and I want to be you, like he's a great man. He's like a hero, and I'm just, and I get what he was saying. Like, I get what he was saying. He's like, I don't want you to be like me because I'm dumb, but I'm like, nah, man, like everything that's good about you, integrity, honor, how to be a man. Like, I learned that from you. How to butcher meat. I learned that from you. I want to be like you. And that's why I love being a cook, because
right, and you're like, how can those things be bad, Dad?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but all he wants is, like, as any refugee and immigrant, is like, I want what's better. Like, you guys are fathers, you get it. You want to set up a life that's better for your children that you had. You don't want them to go through pain and struggle. And I get it. And when I was young, I was dumb. I didn't get that. I was just like, what, Dad doesn't care? Now it's like, yeah, like, I love working the field with him. I love breaking down animals with him,
I think that a thing that he was probably thinking about too was that, like, if he knew that you could work with your hands and like be around heat and struggle, but then find some level of security, it would have been different. But he's probably associating labor and struggle with struggle.
Yeah.
And not labor and struggle with some sort of success and security.
Yeah, because
you know what I'm saying? Because you could probably do. I bet you now.
Oh,
like now he probably looks at you and he's probably proud as shit.
Yeah, it was one of these things where we did this event and the lieutenant governor came by and gave me this little award and whatever, and it was like whatever. And I remember my dad didn't say this, but he said to my mom, he said something along the lines of like, I live in a world now where my son can speak and leaders will listen to him. And like in our culture, that's huge.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And it's not like I don't ever believe that my dad was never proud of me, but in that moment, he said, I think he even said to me, he goes, I'm sorry, I just didn't know what you do.
Yeah, you took an unexpected pathway.
Yep.
Like you took a really unexpected pathway to get to somewhere that made sense to him, because what made sense to him was just that that you knew how you were going to eat. You knew how you were going to take care of yourself. You knew how you were not going to struggle and not be under someone's thumb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so it's like, it's very different now. But man, like I said, you know, and even with Corinne, we were talking, our pre-production, we were talking about this, and I was just like, dude, my life is pretty simple. Like it is, what I do is I get to speak on their legacy. So about 5 years ago, my dad had a horrible accident from work, or 5 or 6 years ago, and he was in the ICU, and he fell, he shattered his skull, and doctors like, we don't know what's gonna happen. And I remember I just started this whole food stuff, and you know, we were getting some push, and people were like really excited. And at that point, it was like, hey man, like this is this new kid, he's making Hmong food, blah, 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 whatever. And I remember visiting him in the ICU. My dad's my hero, man. Like he's a freaking warrior, right? He fought a war. Like I thought to myself, I remember holding his hand at in the intensive care unit, and I just thought to myself, this is not how warriors die. This is not how heroes die. They either die on the battlefield in a great fight, or they die as an old man around like all their grandkids and all the people around them. Like they don't die by slipping on a stupid ladder at work, you know, and fracturing their skull on a job that they didn't ever need to be in, right? And I was so pissed at myself. I'm like, what the frick, dude? And I remember driving back. It was like a 3-hour drive, and they were in Marshfield, Wisconsin at that time. And I was driving back to Minneapolis, and I just thought to myself, my life's got to change, man. Like I can't, it can't be about, oh, we're gonna make this stuff to be about Hmong food. No, man. It's going to be about their legacy. And because why do we always wait for people to pass away to talk about them, to talk about how great they were, you know? Like, why not now? Why not when they can see it? And so, man, life is pretty simple for me. Now, we get to travel the country. We get to make food for thousands of people through our restaurant, through events we do around the country, where at the end, like we talk about Hmong food, but at the end, I can take that story back and I'm like, I want to tell you guys about this legacy that means so much to me. And for me, one of the things that I really love doing. That's why I think that it really shows in hunting, right? And I think in hunting, it's about legacy, right? It's about like, hey, if there's this piece of land that belonged to my great-great-grandfather that was passed down, we can hunt in it, we can enjoy it, our kids can enjoy it. And it was one of those things where it becomes this initiative of mine. You know, my parents have always worked these gardens, and the property's always rental. And so it's like, yep, one of my goals is I'm going to buy them a garden. I'm going to buy them a piece of land that's like in their name. The LLC is in their name. Yeah. So that before they pass away, before the Lord takes them away, like they have a piece of paper that says, this is yours, you know? And so that's kind of another initiative where I'm really passionate about, you know, because that's
that'd be cool.
Yeah. That's all they want to do. And so, yeah, so I get to do all that. And that's why I get excited about, especially when we talk about Hmong food, you know?
When, to get into the food business, did you have to go cook someone else's food before you could do Hmong food, or did you just get right into Hmong food?
Absolutely. I did not want to cook Hmong food because I was super embarrassed about it. I was super embarrassed. Oh my gosh, yeah. I was just like, you know.
What food did you think you had to make to be legitimate?
I didn't think I had to make a certain food. I just had to be good at cooking. Yeah. You know, I mean, like cooking is it's basic, right? It's like, you know, it's like breaking down an animal. If it's a four-legged creature, they're all basically the same kind of, you know, and breaking down the parts. So my whole thing was I was decent. Like I don't think I was ever a good cook. I was just fast enough to keep up with the tickets that came in. And I was the only one, I remember started cooking. I was the only one that lived like kind of like a straight life, you know? So my chefs are always like, dude, I just know that tomorrow you're at 7 or on Saturday at 10 a.m. you're going to come in and you're not going to be like in jail or hungover or whatever. So
they respected that.
Yeah, they just like, dude. And that's what I tell any young kid who wants to get into food or any kind of work. I'm like, just show up. Bro, if you show up like, oh, these kids I got today, Steve, I'm going to tell you. I just say, show up. Just show up. And, you know, my old mentor of mine, Mark Brockberg from college, would always say, he used the acronym FAT, F-A-T, faithful, available, teachable. Show up and be faithful, available, and teachable. You know, and that's just what I did. And it wasn't like a strategy. It was just like, that's all I know how to do. You know, and eventually I just learned. And so what my goal was, whatever kitchen you want to put me in, like I might not be the best, but I'm going to show up. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to outwork everyone here. And even if it means like I'm the last one out, I'll be the last one out. And that was something my father instilled in me. And I didn't realize that at a young age. And now it's just like, you know, you get all these young chefs who comes in and they're like, oh, look at my $500 life. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to start my own YouTube channel. And you're just like, okay, dude, like go peel like 8,000 pounds of potatoes, then we'll talk. You know, it's just like.
There's that quote that's attributed to one of the guys from Lynyrd Skynyrd, which was learn how to play your guitar and then get sexy.
Yeah, in restaurant, I just go learn how to use a knife, and I don't know if you'll ever be sexy, but
So, what was the first chance to do? Like, how did it happen that all of a sudden you got to start doing your traditional food?
Yeah. So I was working through all these different restaurants in Minneapolis. They're incredible restaurants. The chefs are amazing.
Like high end places?
Yeah.
Like fine dining?
Yep. And I had this ability to learn from some really, really great teams. And then I was like, okay, well, let's start out with this little pop-up. So we started like a little pop-up, and people are like, what's a pop-up? And you're like, I don't know, just come in on Friday and we're open for 5 hours and just eat. So we did that. And then we're like, I don't know, what should we do
who
next?
was showing up?
Hmong people, yeah.
Okay.
So Hmong people, here's the thing. There's a, how there's
so they don't mind throwing down some bucks on food.
Well, here's the deal. You know how there's Black Twitter? There's Hmong Facebook, okay?
I didn't know about either of these things.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, there's Black Twitter and there's Hmong Facebook. And let me tell you, the thing with our community, it's a big community, but it's a small community. Yeah, knows what I'm talking about. If one of your sons went and wronged like some other girl from another clan, like trust me, his picture will be up. Everybody's gonna know. They're like, oh, we know what clan he's come from. Oh, we know what village he lives in or what town he's from. Oh yeah, we know his cousin. Like you will be ratted out so fast in there. So there's Hmong Facebook. Now, as much as
apparently it works for you and against you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So somehow on Hmong Facebook said, hey, there's this new kid that's doing like Hmong food in Eastside St. Paul in this little place called Cook St. Paul. My buddy owned this place. It was a diner, so it was open in the breakfast and lunch, and evening was closed, and then Friday.
So you took over the evenings.
Yeah, so once a month. That was it. And I still and at that time I was still from Sunday to Thursday I was working at Coastal Seafoods. I was a fishmonger. Because like I did the butchery stuff, and I'm like, I want to learn more about fish. So like I would do fish. I smell like fish all day, and then Friday, Saturday, once a month, we would do these little pop-ups. And I never wanted to be the kid who said, oh yeah, I want to go start my own business. Like people, like right now you have all these like how to be an entrepreneur. Like that's not me. I'm like, this is so dumb, And then eventually we were very blessed to have a few media people pick up on it and said, hey, let's talk about this, And then that was like 7 years ago.
But when you first did the pop-up, it was Hmong coming.
Yes, we had
but
a lot of Hmong
But at some point, it caught, but it organically caught on with people who just wanted to try new things.
Well, in the Twin Cities, Hmong are really well known, So we have a few big shops in there.
Oh, so people there are likely to know the cuisine.
Yeah. I mean, 75,000 in the metro. We are the, largest BIPOC group, in the Twin Cities. So like it's Hmong and Somalians, and so it's huge. So what happened was, we had some Hmong people come, but then and this was a while back, and this was the beginning. Oh, how do I say this? I have this love-hate with quote unquote food influencers,
Yeah.
And so this was the beginning of Instagram food influencing or quote unquote foodie. When people say foodie, I'm just like, everyone's a foodie. You eat food, right? There, you're a foodie. Just chill, right?
It's a concept that's kind of dying off.
Yeah. But
people were real excited about it for a while, though.
Absolutely, right? And so we had a few who were just really gracious, and they were like, hey, we really love what you're doing. So we're just so they just kept following us around, and they just kept putting social media like, hey, Union Hmong Kitchen's here, Union Hmong Kitchen. I was so embarrassed of being Hmong in the beginning too, bro. I'll be honest right here with you guys, it was called Union Kitchen. I didn't want to put the word Hmong in there because I didn't want white people to be deterred, right? And I had a buddy, he was a PR guy, he works for a big PR firm, and he goes, dude, don't be a chicken, man. He's a white dude, right? White Jewish dude. And he goes, put the word Hmong on there. And I'm like, really? Do you think? And he's like, do it. And so for the first year was just Union Kitchen, and we changed it to Union Hmong Kitchen, and people were like, yeah, this is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
And so I still went on my own little journey of I don't know if people are gonna like this. And again, we were very blessed. And then after a while, there was different stuff came in, and we were just hopping. We eventually got this little food trailer at a brewery that we did food out of. But what really helped us was, no joke, the catering world. Catering weddings. We catered bar mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. That was so awesome.
Are you serious?
One of the most, this is what I talk about. We always say about food is a universal language we can use to speak to each other, right? It's amazing. I mean, I think it's what I love about what you guys do, where it's like we not just only hunt the animal, but we cook it together, and it's just this like, oh, I might not be like into the hunting scene, but the cooking thing is like, dude, that's really cool. Like food has this ability to bring everybody together, and so we got a call, and this person was like, you know, the St. Paul mayor, like I think they were like, they knew the mayor of St. Paul or something like that, and they're like, hey, I have a bar mitzvah coming up, and we will like, we can't do pork obviously, but we'll do everything else. So we're like, okay. And so we catered like a bar mitzvah, and then through the Jewish community, they heard about it, and then another Jewish family's like, yeah, can we do a bar mitzvah for us? I'm like, sure. You know, and we were in a synagogue. We were
They're like a nationless people. Bring them on.
Yeah, like I'm like, we are kind of weird cousins. Let's do this. You know, you guys don't.
Doesn't matter to me.
You guys don't do pork. We do beef. What's up?
Everywhere you go, they try to run you off. Come on over.
Yeah. We even had inquiries for quinceañeras too, and like I kid you not. And that's kind of where we were. And we went from like women's prayer group brunches from Lutheran churches. I kid you not, gentlemen, making quiche and French toast. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm down. You know, this was like a while back where it's like $400. Yes, that's gold. Let's do it. You know, we went from that to bar mitzvahs, and then we had big events, and then Melvin Carter, who is the first African-American mayor in St. Paul, when he won and he had his big bash party, they called us and they, hey, we love you, come and do the food. And so we, like the catering and the private catering scene where, you know, where Yao was talking about, like, that's kind of where we started, you know, and that's kind of, it wasn't, because like people always ask me, like, who's your marketing person? Like, where did you guys go to do? I'm like, bro, like I went from door to door. Catering events, I would go all the time, and I felt like my joke was I felt like a lady of the night, you know, like you would go in and do something special for the client, and they tell their friends, and then I get a call next time, goes, hey, the Johnsons called, they said you did that special thing for them, like, can you do that? I'm like, well, what's the budget? And they'll give me the budget. I'm like, well, the Johnsons gave me a little more. Like, yeah, we'll take care of you. And then you go in and you carry like a few suitcases, you come in, where do I set up? And you know, you do your thing, and then you leave and you paid and you shower and you feel better the next day, kind of deal, you know?
Sure, yeah.
That's how we started. And I did like bachelorette parties too. Like that was one of the weirdest one where I did like a private dining cooking scene for I didn't know it was a bachelorette party. I walked in, like literally I had like a few boxes of like the food and stuff. I walked in and it's just all women. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh yeah, I didn't tell you, this is my sister's bachelorette party, and we wanted you to do like a private dinner. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you guys know I'm like a cook, right?
Like in these clothes, right?
Yeah. The apron's covering everything, okay? I could do the shirt off, but that's going to be a little extra, you know? So like, that's how we hustled. And then we were very blessed. The restaurant grew. You know, we brought in more people. We have incredible operators. We have, you know, we grew an executive team. And then when it came time to saying, hey, how do we grow? I think one of the next growth path was how do we expand and build our own restaurant? You know, going our own brick and mortar restaurant, that is. And, you know, we have two little guys, but to get our big guy, I had to go do the song and pony dance and go to banks and find investors. And then that's when it's a gut check, you know, of like, do you really believe in what you're doing? Because when you stand in front, like when you go sit with some of these investors or potential investors who like write like $150,000 checks, like, you know, they're giving out $5 for, you know, Starbucks or something, you got to like, they look at you and like, woo me. And it's a gut check of like, do you believe in this? Do you,
sure,
like,
man.
It's like, yeah, you know. And I said to I get to talk to a lot of Hmong high school kids, and I said, in life, you're gonna go around in life, and there's gonna be these people in your life, and they're gonna believe in you, and they're gonna tell you incredible things about yourself. And I'm like, think of that as equity, and you put it in a little piggy bank in your heart, and one day there's going to come a moment in your life you got to break that piggy bank and take all that equity and you got to go bet it on yourself. Yeah. And that, I mean, that was like the hardest thing was that to go and say, oh, this building project is $1 million project. And so, okay, we got to go. We got to talk. And when you get in these rooms with these guys who are making $1 million deals for them are like nothing, you know?
They need to find out if you're weak or not.
Yes. Yeah. And that's when you go, do I believe? And that's, you know what I draw from? I don't draw from ye as confident. I draw from mom and dad. Like I think about them. I think about all the hard work they put in. Like I think about the war my dad fought. I think about my mom being in that war prison camp for a year, and where she told me that she would pray every morning that God would allow her to die because it was so horrible in that camp that they had to live in. And she said that one day she said that one day I was praying in the morning. She said she was this young girl. She said, I was praying and I said, God, will you let me die today? Because I can't take life here anymore. And she said, there was a voice inside my heart that says, I can't let you die because your children is going to change the world. So I need you to hold on a little longer because your children that you've never met, they're going to change the world. And the day that I was announced as a finalist for the James Beard, she called me and told me that story.
Oh, really?
Oh, man, like I'm like crying. You know, and I'm
the
like,
frying pan one.
Yeah. Well,
not even the gift from God.
No. She kind of just said, today when I heard that you were nominated as one of the best chefs in the country, I knew why. Like, I needed to keep moving on. So I think about all that.
Like, I can't wait to see what your brother does.
I
mean, if my second pony did this.
Y'all can contest to this, man. You can be the most successful whatever in your family, but when you're around your uncles, man, they remind you're 10 years old. When we have like big parties and grills and I'm standing by my uncles and they're grilling, they're like, let me tell you, kid, how you do this. And I'm like, and you know what I end up doing? I end up becoming the dude who holds the plate for all of them to put the meat on. And they're all like, let me tell you, if you want more people in your restaurant, this is what you do. And I'm like, I just want to be like, Uncle, here's the deal, man. You work at like Anderson Windows, okay? I know where you work at the plant. You don't really cook, but apparently the country has said I'm pretty decent at what I do, but sure, I'm pretty sure you have a secret, you know? So
yeah, we can't really overcome the age and the wisdom.
Yeah, your uncles, man, your
uncles.
It's
a high priority put on.
They make sure they remind you who you are.
Yeah, you get reminded.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember when you were 5, and I'm like,
you guys gonna do that to your nephews?
No, I will not. Do you know what? Well, I do because at the state fair,
don't make the mistake of. I see people. This is not like cultural.
It's just human.
It's
right?
human.
Yeah.
I see people all the time. Throw out because of not liking something about their parents or how they were brought up. They throw the whole thing out.
I completely understand. Yeah.
Instead of just doing a slight tweak.
Yep. No, I do the same thing. Like my niece and nephew, they work at the state fair. We have this stall at the state fair, and this year they work there. And they're from Wisconsin, so they come up and they stay up with grandma and grandpa for a week, and they work there, or 2 weeks, and they work there. And I remember I was like harsher on them than the other kids, you know, because I was like, dude, you guys need a double time. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I realized I'm like, oh, dude, I sound like my father. Like when we were working, you know, he's just like, hey, like I need you to, keep working at it. And I believe in allowing kids to struggle a little bit, when they're working, because I really want to be like, where's the creativity to, figure things out. And I think we work that with our chefs too, like allow them a little line to struggle, and say,
I'm way more I'm way more financially comfortable than I ever thought I would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry constantly about my kids being too soft all the time, man, It's like, you want to not overdoing it, but you just worry about them being like, do you have the gur? Am I like depriving you of the gur?
Yeah, it's a weird thing that it's like this first world problem that you have to think about, because when your dad, he didn't think any other way other than like, I don't want my kid to struggle the way I did. I need to find him a better place.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in a place where life was pretty darn easy in our circumstances, I believe, speaking from, most of us here.
From a global perspective, real easy.
Exactly.
It couldn't get easier.
You have to then think about how are you going to instill that to your kid, because they're not seeing us struggle like the way you saw your dad struggle,
Yeah, but I also think too that one of the things that I love, like one of the things I get to do, I love to do, is there's a lot of high schools up in the Twin Cities area that are like, they have a higher population of Hmong kids. And so I get asked to come in as a speaker. And the thing that I love doing is like, I love looking them in the eyes, where it's like a big auditorium, it's like 300 kids, and you see the group of like 50 Hmong kids, and I look them in the eyes and I said, hey guys, I'm like, to all my like white brothers and sisters and friends out there, like I'm going to put you guys on pause. So I'm just talking directly to the Hmong brothers and sisters. And I say, here's the deal. Your grandfather and your fathers, they fought a war, and they fought a war that wasn't their war, but they fought it with honor. And then when a promise was made that they would have free passage to America for fighting for America, it was denied for them. They still got to America, and they worked here. And they worked for years and years and years to get you where you are. And so anytime you feel like you can't do something, or anytime you feel like, oh, I don't think I'm like strong enough, you remember that the blood that pumps through their vein is the same blood that pumps through your heart. And to remember, I think that's one of the biggest things, is like, remember where you come from. And for me, that was a big part of, look, man, the restaurant industry isn't easy. It sucks, you know. And I was explaining to one of our workers, or you know, one of the kids that work with us about how our for the restaurant the profit margin is like 8%, and if you're a really good year, you get 10, you know, and that's like a really good year. And she was like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, so imagine if you did something and you got $100, and all I said is you can only keep $8, and she's like, that sucks. I'm like, yeah, that's the restaurant world. And it hit her. She was like a younger college kid, and she's like, oh my gosh, really? I'm like, yeah. You know, and so
you were like, so now let's circle back to the fact that you threw the shanks in the trash and had to throw them in the stockpile.
Then it's like, or I get people that are like, oh, it's so amazing what you do. I get young Hmong kids that come up, bless their heart. They're like, wait, I want to be a chef, and I'm like, and I do the Billy Madison scene, you know, where you squeeze their face, you're like, you know what I'm talking about? Where you're like, don't say that, stay where you are, never grow up. Billy, I want to go to high school too, you know, and that's how I feel. But then again, there is this thing of like, man, there's just something about the grind and the grit that happens in my heart, and especially, and that's what one of the things I love about being Hmong and being able to talk to younger Hmong kids, where it's like, you're gonna struggle and it's gonna suck.
So it's American elbow grease, dude. But it's Hmong elbow grease.
Yeah, and I don't, and that's my big thing, man. I love talking to people about it, where I'm like, this isn't a Hmong thing only. This is a human thing.
Yeah.
This is a human thing. Like, yeah, your parents did great things.
Not a universal human thing.
Yeah, but it's
select few.
Yeah, but do you know what I'm
scattered
saying?
Across the globe.
But even what Janis was saying, how you guys was like, hey, you guys, you know, your parents set you up for a little bit better, you know, but you guys still worked hard to where you are. Like, it wasn't like, okay, now I'm just gonna play with all this. Like, no, like, you guys worked, and then being able to pass that down too, you know. And I think that, man, like, we got a little more, like, Yani, we got a little bit more, you know, heads up and more step up, you know, from where our parents are. And, you know, I don't have any kids, but one day, you know, when I do, like, well, my kids will have a little bit of, 39, dude.
You married?
No.
What's going on there?
Ugh, man.
Is your mom and dad bummed about that?
Bro, that's a whole new podcast.
I'm sure he hears it every day.
So I'm the only one in my family that's not married. Everyone's married and has kids. My parents have 21 grandkids, so they love it. You know, they love being grandparents.
Tell them I'm too busy making you proud.
Yeah, right. But in our culture, though, what makes family proud in culture is raising a family, having a family, having lineage, having, you know. So that's that. Every 3 to 4 weeks, my mom gives me the talk. I get it. Yeah. And I don't push it away. I know that she gets to this point where she's a little older now, so she's nervous. Like, I want to instill everything I have to you if something was to happen. She had some health scare, you know. And so I get it. I listen to it. It's about a 20-minute speech. It's the same. It's usually on a phone call. I'm driving into work. It's the same one she gives every 3 to 4 weeks. And I listen, and I say, yes, mom, yep, great. And then sometimes she'll be like, hey, we have some cousins who have some daughters that are coming to visit from Michigan. They're at the house. Like, your dad and I would love some fish, so bring some fish over. And I'm like, I know what you're doing, you know, and stuff like that. But I get it. It comes from a good heart, you know, both of them. It comes from a good heart. Yeah. And so I totally get it.
Tell us, before we wrap up, tell us about your show.
Yeah, you know, we got this show called Feral. It's on Outdoor. You guys might have heard that channel.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. And you know, one of the craziest things was about 2.5 years ago. Patrick, one of the producers, came up and goes, "Hey, I have an idea, bro." And he calls me up, and we've been doing a few TV stuff for like Food Network, and then we were very blessed to be able to do this thing with Netflix with Iron Chef. And so he's like, "I have an idea. It's kind of crazy, but let me pitch it to you." And he's like, this idea is that you're going to travel the country. You're the host of the show. You travel the country, and we find either invasive animals that are destroying their ecosystem, or animals that most people just won't eat. And we're going to go out with a guide. We're going to hunt them, and we'll go outside, and we'll, you know, in the area where we hunt them, we set up a grill and we set up a little mini kitchen, and you cook out there. And I'm like, the first thing I said to him was, dude, this show is so Hmong, it's not even funny. The idea that we're just going to go in the wild, find some kind of creature, hunt them down, and cook it. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm like, what if this show, like, you know, at that point we didn't know if the show was going to be picked up or not. I'm like, if this show gets picked up, every Hmong uncle and cousin will be like, dude, like, that's the show. And so they said, yeah. So we ran like a testing, and Outdoor came back and goes, dude, we want 8 episodes of Rocket. And then in one calendar year, they greenlit three seasons. So we just got done filming season 3. Season 1 was released last fall, and then season 2 will be released in December.
How many episodes are you making per release, like per season?
8.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
8. And man, I had this aha moment. I'm a small Wisconsin boy, right? I'm just from Wisconsin. I had this moment where I had this like come to Jesus moment where I'm like literally chest deep in chocolate milk water in Oklahoma City area, noodling for catfish. And I just thought to myself, man, if you would have told me this 20 years ago, 18-year-old kid going off to college, go, hey, one day, like, you're going to be doing this, cameras around. And I was just like,
and that's college leads to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay in school, kids. But it was like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was that moment where it was like, I don't know if you guys ever had that like surreal moment of like, whoa, what am I doing here? Like, this is so amazing. And then the guide, Nate was like, okay, and I'll get your hand in there and let's go looking for catfish. I'm like, okay, buddy. But man, it's such
You should talk about some of the critters that are on season 1.
Yeah, season 1 we did. We went.
That's all. That whole season's out.
Yeah. Season 1 we went all out. So we first we wild hogs. That was really really fun. A Burmese python. With a guy named Dusty Crumb. Dusty Crumb, you can find him on the History Channel, and he's got a few other little shows down there. And then we had iguanas, the iguana one was really special for me because I showed my dad. I said, "Hey, Dad, we're gonna go hunt iguanas," and he goes, "Oh, we used to hunt those as boys."
Oh, really?
In Laos. And I'm like, "Really? Yeah, on the trees, we see them all the time. We hunt them, we shoot them." And he said that they had these like little 22 guns, like they're like a one loader type thing, and it's like basically it's like a stick, And it's like, and I was thinking to myself, how did you guys aim? Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's like it's barely a gun, right? It's a stick with a little like firing pin that you just hit, And he goes, yeah, that's what we used to do. And then he told me the recipe they used, and it was awesome to be down in southern Florida hunting iguana after we killed the iguanas, to cook it the same way my father cooked it in the mountains of Laos, like 70 years ago. Cool. Where I'm like, dude, this is so amazing. It was so special for me to be on national TV and being able to say, yep, Dad did this 70 years ago in the mountains of Laos. We did carp with Bo.
Lionfish.
Lionfish.
That was cool.
Oh, man. Yeah, lionfish. That was I didn't do the scuba diving because I'm not scuba certified, but they thought it'd be fun to put. It's always a thing. I found out producers think it's fun to put a big guy in a wetsuit and just like do like a 15-minute segment of like funny, goofy movie. I mean, trying to squeeze into a wetsuit.
Sure. Yeah.
So I squeezed into this wetsuit, got into the water, and we were in Destin, Florida, and they were like, our captain that was taking us, he's like, I don't know why you put the wetsuit on. It's like 75 degrees in there. And I looked at our producer and I goes, I thought it'd be funny. And I'm like, screw you, dude. Are you seriously? I thought like I'm sweating into this wetsuit, right? I'm a big dude. He's like, yeah, I just thought it'd be funny. I know you didn't need it. And I was like, oh, I'm trusting your producers. That's what happens.
They learned that in producer school.
Yeah. It's like, what kind of position would we put him in? Oh, the Burmese python. I went to catch it and it bit me, and so I guess one of our producers says, like, after the outdoor guys saw that, they're like, dude, that got us season 2. After you got bit,
get bit more.
Yeah. Now that's like the funny thing, where I'm like, oh, let's just try not to get bitten, like we did one season, we did alligator gar, and it wasn't dead yet when we pulled it on. We shot it in the head, but we pulled it on the boat. It wasn't dead yet, so I'm like, the camera guys, one of our camera guys go, hey, like, get near it, like, kind of, I'm like, yeah. And then they like snap back, and I'm like, screw you guys, So that's kind of the fun thing where it's like, how can we make Ia scream? And then what else we have? That was really fun. And then season 2 was, really fun. And that one we did whitetail, because up in kind of northern, outside a little bit, half an hour north of Minneapolis, there's just the population of doe control with a whitetail, so that was
in a suburban environment.
Yeah. And so I grew up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, college there, and so I got to know the Matt McPherson, the Matthews family, Matthews bows. So we were able to use one of their bows, and this is like the first time I've ever, and I had a crash course in bow, and I was just like, after you get done shooting a Matthews, I'm like, I don't know if I want to go back to anything else, and so it was like really fun just to go and learn the whole system with bow. And I grew up hunting and fishing, but I'm by no means an expert, and that's what makes the show really fun. Is like the first half of the show is like I'm fish out of water, a guide takes me in, I'm going, and then what I've been told is what the producers really love is the fact that the second end of the show, it's a reversal. So the guide, they cooked what they do, and then I get to show them like what I would do with with the meat or with the animal. And I think one of the funnest ones was Central Wisconsin area, kind of near my hometown. We we went beaver trapping. Never done it before, and man, like beavers are just just big old freaking yellow teeth looking back at you, and you're just like, oh my gosh, and they're like, oh yep, go pull that out, and I'm like pulling this thing out, it's just like thick fur, and I was like,
oh yeah, nothing better, man.
Oh man. And then we broke it down and like we ate it. I'm like, this is delicious.
Yeah,
like I love it.
It's surprising,
but it's just, I mean, it's a big rodent, and you're just like, okay, here we go, but yeah, I mean, we shot season 3, and then hopefully we'll hear back about season 4. But it's a really, really fun show. It just came out they have it streaming now on My Outdoor TV.
Yep.
Yeah. Where I don't know. There's like this other show I see on there too called MeatEater.
Something like that.
Yeah.
MeatEater. I think it was MeatEater.
I don't know. I don't know. Every time I go on there, there's a picture of some guy named Steven.
I booked a hotel room driving into a town a couple weeks ago. And she's like, well, what email? And I gave her the email, which is the MeatEater. And she immediately started laughing. Oh, and I was like, nope, that's what it is. And she's like, oh, okay. I was like,
It's like, why is it Seymour Butts at MeatEater? What? Wait, are you serious, sir? Like, yeah.
So tell people how to find you.
We have our
do the restaurant.
Yeah, restaurant is at Union Hmong Kitchen. It's on
Union Hmong Kitchen.
Yep. So on Instagram, all those other platforms, and then for me it's at Vang70.
Got it.
Yeah, you can find all the.
And then Outdoor Channel.
Oh yeah, Outdoor Channel.
My Outdoor TV app.
Yep, My Outdoor TV app. It's like
great, man.
First 30 days are free or something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're coming over for dinner tonight.
Well, if you're invited.
Do you know about that?
Well, Corinne said something about it. I was just trying to be cool about it, Do you know how many friends text me and goes, dude, what are you doing in Bozeman? And I'm like, stuff. And then somebody goes, is it you going to go on MeatEater with Steven and the boys? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And then they're all like freaking out a little bit. So I'm like, dude, just be cool, man.
Well, hopefully you did a good enough job.
You'll have to just hold the plate as Steve grills.
Yeah,
and then
I think Steve's like, if you
I'm not going to grill.
to
It's home cooking right now. It's already on.
Oh, yeah.
It's already cooking.
That's awesome. Yeah. So
we're going to have some chips, potato chips.
Oh, yeah. Is that your culture? Is this Montana culture you're teaching me?
Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's awesome. It's awesome to be here, man. And it's my first time in Bozeman. So Jordan and I's first time in Bozeman. We got a chance to
welcome.
Enjoy the mountains.
And Yang, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah, of course.
If I don't see you sooner, I'll see you. I'll see you at Youth Turk.
Yeah, exactly.
You know where I'll be.
Am I invited to dinner too?
You are invited to dinner.
But yeah, you're looking forward to it.
I get that high field at Youth Turkey again.
All right.
So I'm going to be opening morning.
Well, Dog said if I came for the first time with my girls, he'd give me that spot.
No.
He did.
No. I'll take care of it. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what he says. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.